You are listening to the series, Even After Death, by author EvilAuthor. Olivia Fordham was married to Ethan Miller for 3 years, but that time could not compare with the 10 years he spent loving his first love, Marina Carlton. On the day that she gets diagnosed with stomach cancer, Ethan happens to be accompanying Marina to her children's health checkup. She doesn't make any kind of fuss, only leaving quietly with the divorce agreement. However, this attracts an even more fervent retribution. It seems Ethan only ever married Olivia to take revenge for what happened to his little sister. While Olivia is plagued by her sickness, he holds her chin and says coldly, "This is what your family owes me." Now, she has no family and no future. Her father becomes comatose after a car accident, leaving her with nothing to live for. Thus, she hurls herself from a building. The life my family owes will now be repaid. At this, Ethan, who's usually calm, panics while begging for Olivia to come back as if he's in a state of frenzy. The following is the main content. Episode 4. Olivia sensed something. She raised her head to look at the window above her. The sweater on Connor made him look like a little polar bear. He rested his palms and cheek against the window, overflowing with cuteness. The good soundproofing blocked his voice from seeping through the window. But she could tell that he was saying hi to her. His adorable action appeased the displeasure in her as she smiled and waved at him. Ethan happened to witness the scene at that moment. It felt like he had returned to the time he first met her. That morning, the ponytail girl was waving at him with a smile as dazzling as the sun. 10 years had passed, yet he could remember that smile vividly. He pulled his senses back. Olivia would not come to Collington Cove alone. There could only be one reason for this. She came here for the Fordham residence. Ethan hung up the call. Brent reported the slaughterhouse incident to Ethan. Ethan shoved the ashtray onto the ground, thinking, Marina is getting nosier day by day. Get the car ready, he instructed coldly. Olivia's cheeks felt cold because of the breeze. She didn't want to stay in a room that was specially built for Marina. She'd rather stay outside in the cold. After a shower, Marina headed downstairs with a robe and shower cap. There was a scrape on her neck. The manicurist she hired arrived at that time. She rested on the white leather couch. Marina enjoyed her pedicure, relishing in the top-notch service. Olivia returned to the living room. Marina, who resented her to the bone, wasn't as arrogant as before. Marina wore an icy expression. I can give you Fordham residence, but I have 2 conditions too. Olivia frowned. You want a negotiation? Earning a living is tough. I think it's reasonable for me to have 2 conditions from you when I'm offering a $5 million worth house. Fire away, Olivia prompted impatiently. First, leave Aldenvine. Second, disfigure yourself. Olivia questioned back, are you out of your mind? Do you know what you're talking about? Marina tossed a fruit knife onto the carpet casually. I want you to stay away from Ethan. Once you ruin your face, you won't pose a threat to me. You have something on me, but I have your father's weakness. Do you want that to expose his deeds to the public? Olivia's face slightly changed, giving Marina a sense of triumph. Marina continued, we're no less different from each other. None of us are innocent with clean hands. Olivia Fordham, I want you to ruin your face and leave Aldenvine in exchange for the house. Other than for Fordham residence, Olivia was here for something else. Mastermind. Having tested her a few times, she could tell that Marina was not the. Marina was unaware of her terminal illness, so she need not waste her time on these matters. But who else could it be if it wasn't Marina? White Olivia was absorbed in her contemplation. Marina motioned at the maid next to her. A maid with a built stature kicked Olivia by the calf from behind, causing her to get on her knees. The maid unsheathed a knife. Here, Miss Fordham. Olivia stared at the knife, which reflected her frowning face. Marina Carlton, I haven't agreed to it yet. The maid did not care. He wore a contorted smile. Ms. Fordham, this is your only option. Don't worry. Ms. Veer the Fordham residence to you after you ruin your face. Olivia attempted to free herself, but the maid was too strong. As Fordham, since you can't bring yourself to do it, allow me to have the honor to help you. The maid then flung the knife toward her face. A loud crying echoed against the wall. Connor was standing by the staircase, wailing. Surprised, the maid stopped her movement. Although Marina wasn't close with Connor, as his mother, she didn't wish for her kid to witness the cruel scene. She instructed, "What are you doing? Make sure the kid doesn't see this." The flustered maids rushed toward Connor. Marina was irritated by the sudden crying, too. She urged, "What are you standing there for? Do it." The maid said aloud from upstairs, "Master Connor must be having an allergy reaction. There are a lot of rashes on his body and face. Call the doctor over." Marina was very impatient. Instead of dealing with Connor, she was anxious to settle the score with Olivia because it was her rare chance to do so. Olivia looked at Marina in disbelief. "He's your son, he's so little, and he's crying. You should at least hug him and comfort him." Marina sneered, "If you make it quick, I can do that right away. He's crying so helplessly upstairs. He's not my child, but why does it wrench my heart to see him crying?" Olivia wondered. Her instinct was urging her to throw the knife away and hug Connor. At this moment, Connor suddenly mustered the strength to break free from the maid's grasp. "Master Connor!" the maid shrieked as he rolled down the stairs. Thanks to her speed, Olivia was fast enough to catch him in her arms. Rashes crawled all over his tear-stricken face. "Mama, Mama!" Connor snuggled into her embrace. The wholesome scene infuriated Marina so much. "Olivia Fordham, stop dragging the time. If you can't do it, I can help you." She gestured at the maids to approach Olivia. One of them wanted to take Connor away from Olivia, while the other was planning to hurt her. Marina didn't budge from the couch amidst the mess simply because her pedicure wasn't done yet. Today, Olivia finally realized that not everyone deserved to be a mother. She was taken aback by how Marina wasn't bothered to comfort Connor in this kind of situation. To Marina, the pedicure and Olivia's disfigurement were more important than her kid. Olivia grew pity toward Connor, finally understanding why he was very attached to her whenever they met. Right now, he was hugging her so tightly, showing no hints of letting her go. She didn't have a reason to let him go either. Amid the fight, Olivia accidentally rolled down the stairs with Connor in her arms. The child, whom she failed to protect in the sea, fleeted across her mind. She hugged Connor tightly to take all of the pain and danger upon herself. Until they rolled over the final fleet of stairs, her first reaction was to smile at the surprised boy. "Don't be scared, I'm here." Connor stared at her in a daze. The shock was too much for him to handle that he forgot to cry. Marina didn't rush over to check on him. Instead, she said, "Ruin her face right now." The two maids came up to Olivia with a knife. "We're sorry, Miss Fordham. No one in the house had the nerves to go against the future. Mrs. Miller." Her words were their orders to take. The pain sapped Olivia of her energy. Grogginess and exhaustion got the best of her. All she could do was watch the sharp knife drawing closer to her. The moment the maid raised the knife, she heard a roar. It was as though the king of the beast let out a furious rom, deafening enough to shake the wind's forest. Ethan ran over at full pelt. A frantic Marina noticed him and sprang from her seat, putting the pedicure at the back of her mind. The nail polish splashed onto the floor because of his abrupt action. The striking red adored the white carpet. "Ethan, I can explain," she said anxiously. He ignored her and bypassed her swiftly. However, the maid with the tall stature didn't stop her even after noticing his arrival. Marina brought that Matt-D along to the country back then. Her name was Sana Ashbluff. She had been working for Marina before the latter's mother passed away. Not only did she know martial arts, she was 5'7" and weighed 160 pounds. Thus, she appeared bold among average women. Sana clearly heard Ethan hut. She was aware that Olivia was the thorn in Marina. She did it for Marina. That was why she didn't stop even after hearing Ethan's voice. Just one cut was enough. That one cut would be able to ruin Olivia's beautiful face. And she would never be able to restore her beauty again. It was the same for Olivia and Ethan's relationship. Once there was a flaw, it would be impossible to return to how it was before. No man would like a woman with a scarred face. As time passed, Ethan would definitely fall for Marina. Thus, Sana tried to hurt Olivia. A gunshot was fired out of the blue. The maid screamed in fear and dispersed. The bullet hit the knife off Sarah's hand. Brent hurriedly approached her and forced her to kneel by kicking her calf. He then cuffed her hands behind her. "Don't move." The bullet had scraped her arm. If the gunshot was fired to the side a little, she could have been disabled. The gunshot had stunned her into silence. She didn't dare to move a muscle. By then, Ethan had helped Olivia up. He asked, "Are you all right?" Her body felt sore, and her scraped forehead was bleeding. There weren't any serious injuries, but she wasn't worried about herself. "Check on him. He's having an allergic reaction." Her anxious expression was a complete contrast to Marina's. The first thing Marina did after coming up to Ethan was to shift the blame instead of hugging Connor. "It's her. She pushed Connor off the stairs. My poor boy. He almost died from the fall. She's such a cruel woman." In the past, Ethan wouldn't expose her true colors even after seeing through her. But today was an exception. Infuriated, he grabbed her by the collar. "I'm not blind, Marina Carlton." Her face fell as she racked her brain to come up with an excuse. It was as though the king of the beast let out a furious roar, deafening enough to shake the whole forest. Ethan came over at full pelt. A frantic Marina noticed him and sprang from her seat, putting the pedicure at the back of her mind. The nail polish splashed onto the floor because of her abrupt action. The striking red adorned the white carpet. "Ethan, I can explain," she said anxiously. He ignored her and bypassed her swiftly. However, the maid with the tall stature didn't stop her even after noticing his arrival. Marina brought that maid along to the country back then. Her name was Sana Ashbluff. She had been working for Marina before the latter's mother passed away. Not only did she know martial arts, she was 5'7" and weighed 160 pounds. Thus, she appeared built among average women. Sana clearly heard Ethan, but she was aware that Olivia was the thorn in Marina's flesh. She needed to remove the thorn from Marina. That was why she didn't stop even after hearing Ethan's voice. Just one cut was enough. That one cut would be able to ruin Olivia's beautiful face. And she would never be able to restore her beauty again. It was the same for Olivia and Ethan's relationship. Once there was a flaw, it would be impossible to return to how it was before. No man would like a woman with a scarred face. As time passed, Ethan would definitely fall for Marina. Thus, Sana tried to hurt Olivia. A gunshot was fired out of the blue. The maid screamed in fear and dispersed. The bullet hit the knife off Sarah's hand. Brent hurriedly approached her and forced her to kneel by kicking her calf. He then cuffed her hands behind her. "Don't move." The bullet had scraped her arm. If the gunshot was fired to the side a little, she could have been disabled. The gunshot had stunned her into silence. She didn't dare to move a muscle. By then, Ethan had helped Olivia up. He asked, "Are you all right?" Her body felt sore, and her scraped forehead was bleeding. There weren't any serious injuries, but she wasn't worried about herself. "Check on him. He's having an allergic reaction." Her anxious expression was a complete contrast to Marina's. The first thing Marina did after coming up to Ethan was to shift the blame instead of hugging Connor. "It's her. She pushed Connor off the stairs. My poor boy. He almost died from the fall. She's such a cruel woman." In the past, Ethan wouldn't expose her true colors even after seeing through her. But today was an exception. Infuriated, he grabbed her by the collar. "I'm not blind, Marina Carlton." Her face fell as she racked her brain to come up with an excuse. Olivia didn't want to waste her time on Marina. Ignoring her bleeding wound, Olivia quickly lay Connor on the couch. She instructed, "Bring me a napkin and cold water. We have to elevate the reaction through cold compression right now. Mr. Ingram, buy him some medicine." "Sure, Miss Fordham." Brent released Sana and left the house with hasty steps. Meanwhile, Marina was still trying to find fault with Olivia. "Ethan, did you hear that? Look how despicable she is. It's cold, yet she's going to give Connor a cold compression. He's in a serious condition right now. Is she trying to make him catch a cold? Olivia couldn't put up with her antics anymore. Shut up. Are you really his biological mother? Marina found Olivia's question hilarious. If I'm not his mother, who else is? You. If you are his mother, you shouldn't be this cold-blooded. He's having an allergic reaction and has fallen from the stairs. The first thing you did isn't protect him and comfort him, but to attack me. Do you even call yourself a mother? Marina said, now that Ethan's here, don't assume that you'll be able to restore his feelings for you by defending me. Ethan was there when I gave birth to Connor. He knows very well that I am Connor's mother. Olivia couldn't care less to continue the boring topic with her. The incident proved that some people were unsuitable to be a mother because of their inherent character. Connor's nanny rushed over with a basin of water. Olivia took his top off to place the naplon on him. But something was weird. Kids usually cried or threw a tantrum when they suffered from itchy rashes. Yet, Connor was all quiet. His eyes were fixated on her as he grasped the hem of her clothes tightly, wanting her to stay. It was as though he wasn't afraid as long as she stayed by his side. Hold it right there. What are you doing to my son? Marina was obviously against the cold compression. Olivia shot her a cold look. It will contract the veins and stave the itchiness off. He's not feeling well right now. It takes a single scratch for the rashes to spread. The worst case scenario is that it might cause a fever. Marina wanted to say something, but Ethan stopped her sternly. Shut up. Throughout the 2 years, it was the first time Olivia witnessed him treating Marina that way. Marina clearly felt wronged about it. Soon, she began causing trouble. She said, I have always been extra careful when it comes to Connor's diet. Why is he suddenly having an allergic reaction? What did he eat? A maid answered, Master Connor ate half a slice of honey cake. Miss Fordham baked it. Marina glared at Olivia. Olivia Fordham, how dare you feed him a honey cake? You knew that he's allergic to it. He's allergic to honey. Olivia was surprised to find a similarity between herself and Connor. Stop playing dumb. You came here for Fordham residence and offered a honey cake in order to please me. I didn't drive you away because I treated you as a guest. And yet, you have an ulterior motive. Just come at me if you how could you harm a mere kid? It's not only that. Ethan, look at my neck. She was trying to kill me. Marina knew that Connor was Ethan's priority. Anyone that hurt Connor would be in big trouble. She thought that as long as she could shift the blame to Olivia, he would let the incident slide. Olivia finally realized that Marina was setting her up all along. That was why Marina requested a honey cake. Olivia figured that Marina wouldn't have kept her promise even if Olivia had disfigured her face and left the city. A calculating woman who used her son to her advantage would never keep her promise. As an afterthought, Olivia's heart ached for Connor. Judging from Marina's attitude, she was clearly not a mother matery. Ethan didn't take Marina's side like he always did. He scolded sternly, shut up. You keep finding fault in others ever since I came. Do you even care about Connor? I can't help but wonder how you have been fulfilling your duties as a minthag. His gaze swept across her outfit. Her half-polished toenails disgusted him. Ethan, I get out. I don't want to see you right now. Forget about keeping her pride. Refraining from strangling her to death moment was his best concession. Do you even care about Connor? I can't help but wonder how you have been fulfilling your duties as a mother. His gaze swept across her outfit. Her half-polished toenails disgusted him. Ethan, I get out. I don't want to see you right now. Forget about keeping her pride. Refraining from strangling her to death at this moment was his best concession. Ethan attempted to keep his emotions under control. He was afraid that he might break Marina's neck if she was around here. If he had arrived 1 second late, Olivia would have been hurt. He was able to tolerate Marina's jealousy in the past. He took it as a trivial matter, but he didn't expect things to escalate this far. Ethan looked at the wound above Olivia's eyebrow. Disinfect your wound. Leave Connor to Mina. Mina Whitman was Connor's nanny. Olivia finally heaved a sigh of relief after Connor's rash was under control. She left the rest to Mina. Mama, Connor called her upon noticing that she was leaving. He became anxious, no longer the quiet boy he was a second ago. It pained her to see him crying, so she returned to him to give him a hug. Only then did he nestle quietly in her arms. Ethan took the cotton bud to disinfect her wound. Olivia instinctively dodged him, but he insisted. Don't move. Everyone in the house worked for Marina, making him the only person she could trust. So, she did as he said. He knew that she didn't like pain, so he made sure his touches were light enough. She endured the pain without grunting. Obviously, Ethan was the reason that Olivia grew from her frailty. It was a result of his cold treatment and hurtful words. She lost her smiles and never complained, not even grunting when it hurt. He looked at her hair, which was covered in egg stains. Anger rushed through his veins, reaching every part of his body. He lost control of his strength at the brief distraction, and the cotton bud prodded her wound. She hissed in pain. Does it hurt a lot? He quickly checked on her. He held her chin and cooed, I'll be lighter. His tone made the air feel slightly weird. She shifted her gaze away from him. It doesn't. He disinfected her wound and plastered a pink band-aid on it. He thought that women liked it when things were cute, so he had cute band-aids. It was his habit. Olivia said aloofly, thanks. She drew farther from him. It's getting late. Eve is waiting for me to return home for dinner. I'll leave Connor to you. Goodbye. I'll ask Kelvin to send you. Okay, thanks. Home. Olivia banded over Connor to Ethan. But Connor's eyes became teary almost instantly. I want Mama. I want Mama. Be a good boy. I will visit you some other day. She caressed his head gently. He sobbed, not wanting her to leave. Ethan pulled Connor over. A glare from Ethan was enough to make Connor behave. I expect nothing less from a father and a son. How great would it be if Connor was my son? The thought flashed across her mind. Deeming it scary, she shook her head to shake the idea off her mind. About today, I will make sure justice is served, Ethan said. Treat Connor better. With that, she left the place. She stared at the vast sea, thinking, if my child is still with me, I will make sure to treat him well, not use him to win a man's heart. The thought of her child, who didn't have the chance yet to see the world, pained her. She barely took a few steps when she fainted in front of Kelvin. Mrs. Miller. Kelvin quickly held on to Olivia, supporting her. She managed to fight the drowsiness away. Mrs. Miller, are you all right? I'll take you to the hospital. She shook her head. I'm fine. I'm low on sugar. That's it. She was aware that her body had reached its limit after she fought with Marina and saved Connor. Kelvin observed her, anxious. But why do I feel that you're getting weaker? I'm really fine. Please take me home. After she left, Brent returned to the manor with medicines. The cold compression and the medicines managed to mitigate Connor's allergic reaction before it became worse. Ethan patiently checked on Connor. Obviously, Olivia had protected him well. That was why he was unscathed. It had been a rough day for Connor. Exhausted, he eventually fell asleep in Ethan's arms while clutching his shirt. He entrusted Connor to Mina. Marina approached Ethan with a vulnerable expression. Ethan, you have to believe me. Olivia came to retrieve the Fordham residence. She made a honey cake to please me. But she became vulgar with her words after I refused to give her the residence. She even threatened me with a knife. The maids protected me by snatching the knife from her. Then, she held Connor hostage. Fortunately, you came back in time. Otherwise, it would have been a tragedy. Her story was full of loopholes. Ethan didn't want to and couldn't care less about this pointless subject. He cut to the chase. I want the Fordham residence. Marina was shell-shocked. Without the Fordham residence in her hands, she didn't have a trump card to oppress Olivia. Thus, she would never hand over the residence to anyone else. She walked up to him. Ethan, you gotta believe me. Olivia seriously has a knack for acting. He shoved her away. I know her better than you. And I know you all too well. I did not intervene in your matters, but that doesn't mean I'm blind. Marina Carlton, I've granted all of your wishes, so do not cross the line. Don't let Jethro's sacrifice be in vain. This is the last time. He stood up. She pleaded, but I've asked someone to proceed with the. Ethan's icy gaze landed on her, exuding a murderous intent. This is not a negotiation. I'm informing you. Take good care of Connor, and stop wasting your time on useless matters. If you keep testing my patience, I can't guarantee you that I will show up at the engagement party. He then left. Despite his calm tone, it was a wake-up call for Marina because he had never spoken to her in that way for the past 2 years. Bitch. Olivia Fordham. That bitch. She shoved everything from the table to the floor before going upstairs with a grim expression. Everyone in her sight was an eyesore to her. Even her cat was kicked for simply passing by. Marina's anger reached the roof when she saw Mina. She slapped Mina in the face. Useless trash. You had one job, and you can't even look after a kid. Mina pursed her lips. Ethan had personally assigned her to look after Connor. Thus, it was natural for Marina to vent her anger on Mina first. In fact, it was another maid who fed Connor the cake while Mina had a restroom break. But the truth didn't matter to Marina. Mina was used to Marina's true character and didn't dare to confront Marina. The only thing she could do was to hang her head low and become the punching bag. The sheer sight of you hurts my eyes. Scram, get out of my sight. Marina ordered. Yes, Marina watched Connor, who was asleep. He resembled Ethan so much. They resembled each other because Connor's father was Ethan's younger cousin. However, it pained her to hear Connor hugging Olivia while calling Mama. Marina woke Connor up. He was still sleepy when he murmured, Mama. Connor, could you say that again? She was slightly excited. It was the first time he addressed her that way. He surpassed Irina in terms of intelligence and other aspects. If Irina could call her that, there was no way Connor couldn't do the same. It was because he didn't want to. Connor noticed that Olivia wasn't around as soon as he woke up. Now that the person before him was Marina, his drowsy eyes regained their calmness. He pursed his lips, not wanting to say a word. Marina became anxious. Connor, repeat it. He didn't utter a word, let alone call her mother. His deadpan face was the same as Ethan's. Marina waited for a while to no avail. She vented her anger on Connor. You brat, I gave birth to you and raised you. And you can't even call me your mother. You're so happy whenever you call that bitch your mother, huh? Why did I give birth to an idiot? Other than your face, you're useless. She turned him over to spank him. He cried as he didn't know what he did wrong. Mina hurried over to the scene, and Marina stopped. Marina threw Connor at her, threatening, you have quite the temper. But I'm warning you, if you let anyone know about this, you ought to leave this house tomorrow. Connor wasn't Ethan's biological son. Yet he resembled Ethan so much. Besides, Ethan gave him paternal love in order to placate the guilt of losing a child. Thus, Marina needed Connor so she could become Mrs. Miller. She didn't want to infuriate Ethan with such a matter. Marina left. Mina's eyes reddened when she saw Connor's swollen butt. She had been babysitting him for a year, and she had grown attached to him. She thought, how could she do this to a little kid? As a mother, she's nowhere as good as Olivia. Mina initially thought of reporting it to Ethan, but she deemed it as a lecture from mother to son. Marina didn't really hurt Connor. If Ethan found out about it, that would reveal her disloyalty toward Marina. Judging from Marina's character, she wouldn't allow Mina to take care of Connor if she knew. She suppressed the grievance and comforted Connor. At the roadside of Seacrest Court, Brent was checking the surveillance footage of Collington Cove. There were a few hidden surveillance cameras within the house. When Ethan saw Marina pouring eggs over Olivia, he clenched his fists. The crease between his eyebrows smoothened a little when Olivia fought back. However, that was only the beginning. Marina's following actions made their skins crawl. Connor cried and fell off the stairs. Yet, the first thing she did wasn't protect him but ruin Olivia's face. Had Olivia not protected him by risking her life, he wouldn't have been able to stay uninjured from falling down the stairs. Brent was surprised by the event. If anyone sees this, one might mistake Ms. Fordham as Master Connor's mother. Ms. Carlton didn't care about her son. She's so cruel, Mr. Miller. Are you going to take this kind of woman as your wife? There were no surveillance cameras in the bedrooms. Based on the surveillance footage of other areas, Marina was not affectionate to Connor and acted indifferent. On top of that, today's incident had hardened Ethan's understanding of her selfish character. He reclined in his chair, sighing. I owe her. I don't have other options. Brent wasn't aware of their past. So he was curious as to what made Ethan end up like this. Hand over the Fordham residence to Olivia. You take on the procedures, Ethan instructed. Got it. Ethan shut his eyes, replaying the scenes in his head again and again. The scenes of how Olivia was drenched in egg stains and how she hugged Connor and rolled over the stairs. Brent reminded him, Miss Fordham almost fainted when she left the house. Mr. Miller, you keep saying that she's ill. I think she really is. It pained Ethan to know that. He opened his eyes and coldly said, tell the Carltons that the engagement party is postponed. Brent was quick in handling matters. He managed to receive a notarial certificate on the same day. Olivia was aware of how she was able to retrieve the house. It was thanks to the fact that she was willing to risk her safety to protect Connor. She did it out of reflex at that moment. Even if Connor was Marina's son, he was an innocent child. She smiled self-mockingly. There was a cut on her eyebrow, and she received the Fordham residence in exchange. The moment she shut her eyes, she always recalled how Marina forced her to get on her knees. She couldn't help but clench her fists. Olivia spent the following 2 days peacefully. Not only did she retrieve the Fordham residence, but Ethan also didn't show up in front of her. Coover found new findings regarding Jeff as he sent a few pictures to her. At that moment, she was eating the cherries Everly prepared. When she saw the pictures, the cherry in her hand fell onto the floor before it reached her mouth. Her phone fell onto the floor, too. Everly's lips were rosy because of the fruits. She looked back at Olivia's pale face. What's wrong? The share price plummeted, or a celebrity caught in a scandal? Olivia didn't answer Everly as she broke into a cold sweat. What's the matter? You look like you're possessed. Don't scare me. I'm a coward, Everly muttered while picking the phone up. The phone screen was still unlocked, so she saw the pictures. It was a car accident. A truck bulldozed across the greenbelt before crashing into a black car, crushing it flat. Isn't this your father's car? Are you all right? Why are you looking at these? Olivia finally found her voice, but her voice was trembling. Look at the other pictures. Everly sensed something was off. Her expression turned solemn. Isn't this Ethan? One of the pictures showed Ethan standing under a nearby tree. He stood there quietly. The sunlight danced through the leaves, casting an eerie pattern over his face. His face seemed colder than usual because of it. Wearing the haughty expression he always wore, he witnessed the whole accident. Olivia held Everly's hand. Everly realized that Olivia's hands were clammy with sweat. Everly comforted her. Liv, calm down. Call Ethan and ask him. Eve, do you think that it is a coincidence? Olivia's voice was quivering. My father's car crash wasn't an accident. He planned everything. She could barely tell the cruel truth. Perhaps, he just happened to stand right there. Olivia grabbed Everly's arm tightly. On the same day, a few car crashes happened at the same time. The roads were blocked, so the ambulance couldn't arrive in time. If Dad had received an emergency treatment, he wouldn't have suffered a side effect. He's been hospitalized for 2 years. Eve, it is Ethan. He planned everything. He planned the car crashes to stall time. He wanted my father to die at the scene. That is a living person. Even if Ethan is a scumbag, that is his father-in-law. He wouldn't do such a thing. Everly didn't know what else to say. Olivia was crying and smiling at the same time. The smile was awful. You don't know him. He's capable of doing anything. He had fertilized flowers with someone else's ashes before. As long as he wanted to achieve something, there was nothing he wouldn't do. I thought he took revenge on Dad to make us go bankrupt. I didn't relate him to the car crash at all. He is a devil. He murdered my father. Liv. Everly was at her wit's end as she didn't know how to comfort Olivia. The picture proved that he was present during the car crash. It didn't indicate that he was the mastermind. Yet, Olivia was certain that he was the culprit. Olivia was utterly disappointed. She knew that he wasn't a kind person, but she had never expected this kind of cruelty from him. Now, she realized that she didn't know much about him. Eve, you know what? On the day of the car crash, I was making a meal at home because it was Ethan's birthday, she recounted. Everly drew a few tissues for Olivia to wipe her tears off. The tissues were soon dampened because Olivia couldn't stop crying. Olivia continued, Ethan never celebrated his birthday because he shared the same birthdate as his sister. He's always in low spirits on his birthday. I racked my brain to come up with an idea to make him feel better. I remember I spent a lot of time decorating the place. Yet, before he came home, all I received was news of my father in dire condition after a car crash. She placed her hand on her chest, trying to catch her breath. I once thought of ending the bad blood between us with my death. Now, I regret it. Why does the person have to be me and not him? Why do I have cancer? Why is God so unfair? Everly said, calm down, Liv. He was at the scene, but that doesn't mean that he was the mastermind. Who gave you the pictures? What if it's a scam? Olivia said, I hired a detective to look into the car crash. There are no grudges between the detective and me. Why would he set me up? That day was Leia's birthday, so he's trying to make it my father's death anniversary. I bet he didn't expect my father to survive that. His plan was delayed. Olivia smiled bitterly. I was grateful to Ethan for not putting an end to my family. Now that I think about it, perhaps he wanted me dead. And my child, I guess he didn't save me on purpose. Dad survived, so Ethan wanted me and my child to make up for Leia's death. Everly hugged her. Liv, don't let your imaginations run wild. You're giving me chills. Ethan loved you. He would never do anything to hurt you, no matter what. However, Olivia was on the verge of losing herself. Ethan felt like a stranger to her. Eve, you were right. Did I owe him anything? Why do I have to end up like this just because I pity him for losing a sister? I'm the most pathetic person here. I lost my father, my child, and a home to depend on. I've been putting up with Marina's antics. She poured eggs over me, demanding me to kneel before her. What am I doing these for? Does Ethan think that because everyone's beneath his station, he can play God? Let's see if he can control my life. Olivia's distorted expression scared Everly as the latter said, Liv, calm down. You're scaring me. Eve, I will take revenge. I will take everything that Marina and Ethan owe me from them. I will make them pay the price. My poor child, you must be in heaven looking over me. That's why you unveil the truth to me, right? Clivia walled to the bathroom like a lifeless doll, muttering, once I get our revenge, I'll come to you. Wait for me, I'll come to you soon. To Everly, Olivia was a bright person who grew up with a good upbringing. She was a proper person who upheld the right values. She never used underhanded schemes. Even if she was born into a rich family, she didn't look down upon ordinary people. It was normal for Ethan to fall for a confident and sophisticated person like Olivia. As a woman herself, Everly liked Olivia, too. There were a lot of times when Everly was embarrassed of herself when she compared herself with the upright Olivia. However, the woman standing before Everly didn't feel like the Olivia she knew at all. Now, she was like a doll in a breakdown. Her beautiful eyes were devoid of emotions, sending chills down Everly's spine. Everly said, Liv, what are you talking about? Similar to a madwoman, Olivia cried and smiled at the same time. Now, she finally understood why kindness was the opening for others to bully her. She wept. He won't help me to look for Leo. He simply needed a reason to bully me. Yet, I'm still wishing for my father to regain his consciousness like a fool. Liv, Everly called. Olivia went berserk. I'm a dog to him. He gives me some toys when he's happy, and I have to be grateful to him. I have to be careful around him because I'm afraid of offending him. I reckon he sees me as a clown. I'm hurting, but I have to please him. Yet, he takes the liberty to rub salt on my wound. Liv, calm down, Everly attempted to comfort her. Olivia responded, calm down. Eve, how am I supposed to calm down? They're the cause of my misfortune. Why do I have to die and not them? Chill, shrouded Everly. Liv, do not think of anything silly. Yes. Marina is a total bitch, but her child is innocent. Do not think of hurting him. Olivia's mother passed away when she was young, so Jeff was the only person she could depend on. Family mattered the most to her. When she got pregnant, her child was her world. She thought everything that happened to Jeff and her baby was accidental. Thus, she didn't blame Ethan. But everything was different now. It was not an accident but an attempted homicide. The other party had harmed her precious family, so she would never let this slide easily. Everly persuaded Olivia patiently in order to prevent a tragedy from happening. Olivia smiled at her. Eve, what are you thinking? Why would I hurt a child? That's a relief. Olivia looked out of the window. It was a sunny day. The snow pile on the branches melted under the sun before dripping onto the roof. The droplets gathered and formed a puddle, much like her resentment that slowly grew. She muttered, I'm curious if Ethan was sad when my baby was gone. He didn't even see my baby. If Connor was that dying baby back then, would Ethan be upset? Even just a little. Everly felt a cold sheen behind her back when she heard that. She hurriedly grabbed Olivia's hands. Liv, oh Liv, please do not have that kind of thought. I was wrong to mention the story of revenge and rebirth. Those are just fictional stories. They don't apply to us. Ethan is a bastard, and Marina is a bitch. But Connor is innocent. You had a child yourself too. Olivia became agitated upon hearing Everly's words. An ominous glint danced in Olivia's eyes as she said aloud, Connor is innocent. But my dead child is innocent, too. The person who should have died is him. She rubbed her throbbing chest with a contorted expression. If he hadn't been born, my child wouldn't have died. Silly girl, why do you have such extreme thoughts? Liv, listen to me, I am a realist, but I do believe in fate. Everything that's happening is destined to be. Your baby has become an angel sooner than most people. If you look into the sky, he might be watching you. He wants you to live a good life, not waste your time doing the things you will regret later on. Think about the hardships you've gone through. I bet you can't bring yourself to see others experience the same thing, do you? Everly asked. Olivia looked back at Everly icily. Do you know what I went through the past year? Why does my family have to be ruined? Marina is living happily with her family, and Ethan can do anything he wants. All I want is to have them have a taste of their medicine tenfold. Liv, Everly gazed at her concernedly. Olivia suddenly broke into a smile. Don't give me that look. I won't do anything until Dad regains his consciousness. Liv, I know that I'm not in a position to say anything because I didn't experience the same situation you did. All I wish for is for you to be healthy. Keep your cool, Everly said. Don't worry, I am as calm as ever right now. Everly was in a distress. She didn't know what was running in Olivia's mind, but she couldn't do anything about it either. When she left, she heard Olivia humming a lullaby. When Olivia was pregnant, she bought a lot of toys and downloaded lullabies on her playlist. At that time, Everly teased, your baby isn't out yet, and you already learned so many lullabies. Be careful not to fall asleep. Olivia rubbed her belly with a gentle smile. It'll be too late to learn it after the baby is born. I'll be a total mess. It's my first time becoming a mother. Of course, I should be prepared. He can actually feel it. He smiled whenever I hum the songs. He doesn't kick me either. I think he's going to be a sweet boy that cares for his mother. Everly chuckled. You're pretty. It's fine as long as he looks like you or his father. I'm looking forward to meeting him already. Olivia anticipated the day that had never come. Little did she know that Ethan, who hadn't bothered her for days, was on the other side of the globe. He was in a life-threatening situation. A masked Ethan leapt off the bridge and a rain of bullets showered from the bridge. Red smeared across the surface of the water. He won't be able to get far. After him, instructed one of the pursuers. Ethan swam out of the river, covering the wound on his right arm while reaching the shore. A cube box was in his tight grasp. He expressed relief, muttering, "Jethro, are you watching over me? See, I got it back for you." Olivia became agitated upon hearing Everly's words. An ominous glint danced in Olivia's eyes as she said aloud, "Connor is innocent. But my dead child is innocent, too. The person who should have died is him." She rubbed her throbbing chest with a contorted expression. "If he hadn't been born, my child wouldn't have died." "Silly girl, why do you have such extreme thoughts? Liv, listen to me, I am a realist, but I do believe in fate. Everything that's happening is destined to be. Your baby has become an angel sooner than most people. If you look into the sky, he might be watching you. He wants you to live a good life, not waste your time doing the things you will regret later on. Think about the hardships you've gone through. I bet you can't bring yourself to see others experience the same thing, do you?" Everly asked. Olivia looked back at Everly icily. "Do you know what I went through the past year? Why does my family have to be ruined? Marina is living happily with her family, and Ethan can do anything he wants. All I want is to have them have a taste of their medicine tenfold." "Liv," Everly gazed at her concernedly. Olivia suddenly broke into a smile. "Don't give me that look. I won't do anything until Dad regains his consciousness. Liv, I know that I'm not in a position to say anything because I didn't experience the same situation you did. All I wish for is for you to be healthy. Keep your cool," Everly said. "Don't worry, I am as calm as ever right now." Everly was in a distress. She didn't know what was running in Olivia's mind, but she couldn't do anything about it either. When she left, she heard Olivia humming a lullaby. When Olivia was pregnant, she bought a lot of toys and downloaded lullabies on her playlist. At that time, Everly teased, "Your baby isn't out yet, and you already learned so many lullabies. Be careful not to fall asleep." Olivia rubbed her belly with a gentle smile. "It'll be too late to learn it after the baby is born. I'll be a total mess. It's my first time becoming a mother. Of course, I should be prepared." He can actually feel it. He smiled whenever I hum the songs. He doesn't kick me either. I think he's going to be a sweet boy that cares for his mother. Everly chuckled. "You're pretty. It's fine as long as he looks like you or his father. I'm looking forward to meeting him already." Olivia anticipated the day that had never come. Little did she know that Ethan, who hadn't bothered her for days, was on the other side of the globe. He was in a life-threatening situation. A masked Ethan leapt off the bridge and a rain of bullets showered from the bridge. Red smeared across the surface of the water. He won't be able to get far. After him, instructed one of the pursuers. Ethan swam out of the river, covering the wound on his right arm while reaching the shore. A cube box was in his tight grasp. He expressed relief, muttering, "Jethro, are you watching over me? See, I got it back for you." A few days ago, Ethan found Leo, but he didn't inform Olivia about it. He flew to another country. He had something to settle there. But it was also because of something else that was important. He wanted to take Leo back to the country personally. He figured that Olivia would be happy to see Leo. Noticing the smile on his face, Ethan quickly shook that idea off. He thought, whether she'll be happy or not, it doesn't matter to me. I found Leo because I want to take control of her life and death. That way, it'll be easier to torture her. Ethan spent a few more days abroad. He suddenly received news of Leo's disappearance. They had reached an agreement before this. Ethan sent Jeff's medical reports to Leo, who shared his professional opinion about it and agreed to perform the surgery. Yet, Leo vanished in thin air when Ethan was going to take him back to the country. Brent reminded Ethan, "Mr. Miller, Leo's acting weird." Ethan appeared calm, but his eyes were dangerously icy. "He fooled us." Obviously, Leo revealed his whereabouts to them and was acting agreeable. Ethan was here to personally escort Leo but was attacked by surprise. Now that Leo had disappeared, it was evident that he was fooling Ethan. He's the first to reject the Miller group. Brent inwardly wished Leo luck. Ethan ordered indifferently, spread the news on the dark web that I'm offering a bounty worth 1 million on Leo. I don't care if he's captured alive or dead. Okay, but what about Mrs. Miller? Brent knew that things were going rigid between Olivia and Ethan. Jeff was the factor sustaining their relationship. If Ethan failed to keep his promise, their relationship would turn worse. Let's talk about that when we return, Ethan replied. It had been days since he last met Olivia. He wondered if the wound on her eyebrow had healed. He was worried that it would leave a scar. At that moment, he wished he could meet her at that instant. Tell her to pick me up from the airport, he said. Yes, sir. At the same time, Olivia was looking after Jeff at the hospital. Kelvin relayed Ethan's message to her. Suppressing the resentment in her, she used the calmest tone ever to say, okay. The caregiver had taken good care of Jeff. He was sleeping soundly in bed. However, he needed the medicines and nutrient fluid to sustain himself, so he appeared skinnier than before. When Olivia was wiping his hands with a cloth, she noticed that his muscles were becoming loose. Hi guys. This is me, Black Spade the Novel Hunter. I just want you guys to know if you're reading this that I concluded this message in order to reach 500 words in this chapter. I can't upload it with only around 450 words, so that's it. Jeff survived the car crash, so Ethan provoked him. That resulted in Jeff getting a heart attack. Jeff was in a coma in the end. Olivia tightened her fists as resentment flared in her eyes. It was getting late. Kelvin drove her to the airport. She had a simple meal at the airport. It didn't matter to her if Jeff was able to regain his consciousness. As long as she was alive, she would never let Ethan and the others live in peace. She wouldn't be able to live long anyway. So she didn't mind the idea of bringing a few people down to rock bottom with her. Olivia waited in the waiting room for a while. She checked the landing hour through the schedule to head out of the room 5 minutes before the plane landed. It had been sunny without snowfall in Aldenvine for the past 2 days. Thus, the plane landed on time. Ethan took the VIP exit out. When Olivia was going to walk up to him, she noticed the person walking next to him. It was Chris. Although she had met him only once, she would never forget him. Back then, it was Chris who picked Chloe up from Fordham residence. The man Chloe could never get over was naturally not bad. She was willing to forsake everything behind to leave with him. Ethan and Chris walked side by side. Objectively speaking, Jeff and Chris were equally handsome. The only difference was their aura. Jeff had a gentle and graceful demeanor, yet Chris was shrouded by oppressive air. Chris was looking at Olivia with sharp gazes, sending chills biting her skin. It was as though a beast was eyeing her. She was very young when he came to Fordham residence back then. She wondered if he could recognize her. Soon, she knew that he could recognize her. He stopped in front of her. Miss Fordham, waiting for someone. Olivia didn't know how to face him at this moment. It was supposed to be a grudge between the older generation. But as time passed, she felt that he was the person who stole Chloe from her, turning her into a motherless child. Yes, she replied indifferently and glanced at Ethan. Perhaps guilt was pricking Chris' conscience as he tried to appear harmless. He softened his tone. Your mother has been mentioning you a lot these years. Now that we're back, feel free to visit us at any time. You can meet her anytime you want. Okay. Olivia shifted her gaze onto Ethan, who seemed paler than usual. Together with those eye bags, she could tell that he didn't rest up well for the past 2 days. Chris was now Ethan's father-in-law. She wondered how he would act in front of his ex-wife when his father-in-law was around. After all, Chris was the aggressive type. If Ethan hurt Marina, Chris would definitely come at Ethan with a knife. Olivia didn't utter a word. She was waiting for Ethan to react. Then, he proved to her that promises and sweet nothings could never prevail over reality. He merely glanced at her before looking away, treating her like a passerby. Chris bid her goodbye out of courtesy, yet Ethan strode by her expressionlessly. The cold breeze brushing her cheeks reminded her of the reality check. Olivia understood what Ethan meant by that. He didn't want to expose their relationship to Chris. Once they left, she took another way out of the airport. As soon as she opened the car door, she was pulled into an embrace. Olivia knew who it was without taking a look at the man. Ethan was wearing a suit that perfectly outlined his built figure. The glint in his eyes was dangerous, as always. She could recognize him through his sharp jaw alone, too. His cedar scent wafted her nose, creating an intimate atmosphere in the back seat. She stifled the urge to shove him away for her big plans. She broke the silence first. "Where have you been?" Now that she had gotten over him, she showed no interest in his life. She wouldn't take notice of his social media updates nor check his Twitter account repeatedly, let alone click his profile picture again and again. Had Ethan not informed her to pick him up from the airport, she wouldn't have known that he had been abroad. Work. It was a succinct answer. He wanted to talk about Leo, but it would ruin the atmosphere. Olivia was sitting on his lap. Her body was warming his thighs. In addition to the closed space, their intimate posture was a fluttering scene to behold. The temptation was urging him to do something more. His finger traced upward along her neck, sending tingling heat to her skin. It finally stopped at her eyebrow. He observed her cheek carefully as his voice softened. "Is it healed?" As the lighting flowed through the window, he noticed a scar on top of her eyebrow. It was barely visible without a closer look. His coarse fingertip rubbed her wound softly. "Thank you for what you did that day." His breath brushed her forehead lightly. Olivia thought that he was being unusually gentle to her because she saved Connor. She was suddenly intrigued to know Ethan's reaction when she killed Connor one day. He wouldn't be as gentle as he was right now, for sure. She began to look forward to that day. She wanted him to know how it felt like to lose his loved one. Olivia replied indifferently, "It's nothing. I was once a mother, too." Ethan's arms tightened around her waist when he heard that. She continued, "Any updates about Leo's whereabouts?" His eyebrows creased. He recounted the whole story without hiding anything. "I've announced a bounty on him. We'll find him soon." She took it as an excuse because she had expected this coming. She thought, "He wants Dad to die. Why will he spend the effort to look for Leo? He gave me his word back then so that I wouldn't get in his way." "What a great actor you are, Ethan Miller." Mockery tinged her gazes. Meanwhile, Ethan took her silence as a disappointment, so he comforted her, "I will find him." Okay. She didn't want to continue that boring topic anymore, so she switched the subject. "It's Connor's birthday party in 2 days. Can I join?" Her child passed away on Connor's birthday. Ethan was aware that her child's death had always been her sore spot. She raised her head. The street lights reflected in her dark eyes as she licked her dry lips. "It's been a year. I think it's time for me to move on." Her eyes met Ethan's deep gaze. A faint light shone on his face. It cast a glow on half his face while the other half was shrouded in shadow. It reflected his conflicting personality. He could be an angel sometimes. But he could also be a demon. Olivia was not sure if he would agree to her request. It was his child's first birthday party, after all. His child, which he had with another woman. Their engagement party was postponed. But Marina brought the birthday party forward to announce her status and identity, to the world. She had already sent out invitations to every rich and powerful person long ago. She wanted everyone to know. It was apparent that the ex-wife would not be welcomed at the party. Ethan did not say anything. But his naturally prideful temperament made her more nervous than ever. She didn't even realize that sweat was seeping out of her clenched fists. He looked at her seriously and said, "Fine." Her whole body relaxed after she got a positive answer. She dared not let too many emotions slip before Ethan. His enigmatic eyes seemingly saw through all her schemes. The car arrived at the Miller residence quickly. She knew what he had in mind. Kelvin had already opened the door for her. It wasn't snowing tonight, but the wind was strong. The cold winds blew at her from all directions. Ethan did not walk as fast as he normally did. Instead, he was waiting for her at a short distance. He only started to walk again after he saw that she had gotten out of the car. Olivia followed behind him with steady steps. She did not have pleasant memories at the Miller residence. But she had no choice but to follow through for the sake of her upcoming plan. The door to the second floor opened. She followed while dragging her feet. As soon as she entered the room, her body was pressed against the wall by Ethan. She choked on her words as Ethan sealed her lips with a kiss. His movements were rough and without care. He was like a typhoon that wanted to destroy her. Olivia did not understand why he came looking for her as soon as he came back. She was his enemy. Why didn't he go to his new lover instead? Didn't he say that she was bony? Ethan unzipped her down jacket while she was still zoned out. As expected, there was a sweater underneath the jacket. But she felt exposed as soon as the jacket was unzipped. Olivia managed to push him away with great effort. Her hands were pushing against his chest. I know you're in a hurry, but please slow down, Mr. Miller. Ethan's hoarse voice came from the darkness. I have a lot of patience tonight, Olivia. He had plenty of time to strip her down, even if she had as many layers as an onion. Let me take a bath first. I've been at the hospital the entire day. I don't mind. Olivia did not believe for a second that he wasn't having perverted thoughts. She pushed him off her and said, just for a bit. Olivia quickly ran to the bathroom. She was trying to think of a way to refuse his advances politely. As the door was about to close, a slipper was stuck at the edge. Ethan's looming body squeezed into the bathroom immediately after. Let's bathe together. He casually took off his suit and revealed his white shirt. He started to unbutton his shirt. As he unbuttoned his collar, it looked as if his self-control left him, and he was replaced by a devil. His dark eyes were focused on her face. Then, he said, from your expression, I'd say that you have something to say to me. Olivia quickly tried to come up with an excuse. How would I? She was pulled into his arms before she could finish her sentence. At that, Olivia's weak body lost balance. And she grabbed at his shirt helplessly. He then held onto her waist, which finally stopped her wobbling. After she found her footing, she instinctively tried to move back. But she was forced onto the bathroom sink by Ethan. Ethan placed his hands on both sides of her. He leaned in slightly and trapped her. He loved the feeling of being in control of others. And Olivia was like his prey with nowhere to run. He looked down at her with an aggressive look. He lifted her chin with one of his hands and kissed her. If you have any complaints, suck it up. He was a tyrant, emotionless and unhinged. Suddenly, Olivia noticed a blood stain on his left arm. The stain was slowly growing larger on his shirt. She finally found an excuse to stop this. She quickly pushed him back and said, "You're hurt." Ethan subconsciously tried to hide from her prying gaze. It's nothing, just a scratch. You're bleeding so much. There's no way that's a small wound. You must have broken some stitches. We need to get it bandaged now. He raised his eyebrows. You do it, he said. She didn't mind helping him bandage his wound. It was better than having sex with him. She was able to hold him off from having sex with her for the rest of the night with that excuse. Soon, it was Connor's first birthday party. The party was set on a cruise ship. Marina had picked the location herself. She probably wanted to rub her victory in Olivia's face. This was where she won the battle a year ago. Even now, when looking at the ocean, Olivia could still vividly remember Ethan swimming decisively toward Marina. She could also recall sinking into the bottom of the ocean. She felt so helpless as the ocean swallowed her up back then. The sun was setting. Kelvin came to get her as promised. He was still as talkative as ever. Mrs. Miller, the cruise ship is going to be so lively tonight. There will be a lot of activities. A fireworks show is also happening later. He meant for Olivia to enjoy herself tonight. She had had a tough year. But he neglected the fact that the celebration tonight was meant for Ethan and Marina. It had nothing to do with her. Olivia chatted with Kelvin half-heartedly for a bit. She was the last one to board the ship. It was to avoid meeting the Carltons, as that would have been awkward. Ethan was unexpectedly looking out for her. Calvin had gotten used to seeing Olivia in down jackets. His eyes glowed in surprise when he saw her in an evening gown. "Mrs. Miller, you look gorgeous today." She had never accompanied Ethan to any events in the 3 years she was with him. Naturally, it meant that she never had the chance to wear an evening gown. She dressed herself up today. She even put on heels. She quickly attracted the gazes of men and the jealousy of women. Most people did not know who she was. Many men approached her to hit on her. Callista was mad with anger. She's still as much of a show-off as ever. So disgusting. Why are you so mad at her, Callista? She's pretty and has a great figure. She isn't wearing anything outrageous either. Callista replied, "It's Connor's first birthday party today. She's wearing a black gown and a black veil. Did she think she was attending a funeral?" She snorted. "Stop the nonsense, Callista. Marina would beat the hell out of you if she heard what you said." Callista was still discontent. She hated the fact that Olivia became the center of attention wherever she went. Calvin walked up to Olivia and said, "Hey. Fancy seeing you at these types of events." "Hey, Calvin," Olivia responded courteously. "I didn't like events like these in the past. And after the Fordhams went bankrupt, I never got the chance to come to one. You could spend $500 million like it was nothing. If you don't even get to go to events like this, I think most people on this ship haven't either." Calvin knew about her relationship with Ethan, but he kept it to himself. He only winked at her in secret. It would seem like he found something on the security cameras back then. Olivia had an idea of what it was. Before Olivia could say anything, Callista said in a mocking tone, "Didn't I tell you, Calvin? Olivia would at least get with a rich old man. She has the looks for it." "Olivia, I haven't heard about the passing of any rich old man, though. Counting down the days of your rich old husband. Aren't you a wicked woman?" From Callista's perspective, Olivia must have gotten with a rich old man, which was why she kept her man a secret. Why wouldn't she flaunt her man if he was a rich heir? "Stop talking nonsense in public, Callista," Calvin said. He glared at her. His attitude upset her. "Calvin, why are you so protective of her? Are you planning to marry her after her husband dies? Your father will not allow that to happen. Stop spouting nonsense. You should head in first, Olivia." "It's cold on the deck," Calvin suggested. That wasn't a good place to talk. Olivia also didn't want to deal with Callista. Callista had been after her like a dog on a bone. She nodded and left. "Calvin, you've got your eyes on her, haven't you? I know that you wrote her a love letter in secret back in school." Calvin looked on as Olivia left. It didn't matter if it was now or then. She wasn't someone that he was good enough for. During the school years, he was one of the many people that admired her. That was not to say that he was completely infatuated with her. But he had a genuine affection for her when they were still students. Now that everyone had gotten into the workforce, there was only more work to look forward to. The pure feelings from the adolescent years were long gone. They were buried deep in his heart, never to surface again. Now that he had found out about Olivia's identity, his respect for her only grew. He exchanged a few words with others briefly and went looking for her. Marina was not happy to see Olivia. Her expression was full of rage. Whenever she closed her eyes, she could still see the image of Olivia smearing her face with batter and beating her up. It was absolutely absurd. On the other hand, Chloe was delighted to see Olivia. Her face lit up when she saw her. She quickly made her way toward Olivia. "I'm so happy you could make it, Liv. Why did you cut your hair short for no reason? But then again, you have good genes. So you look good either way." Chloe's eagerness used to be the maternal love she craved as a kid. Back then, whenever she had a fever, she would yearn for Chloe's embrace. But she left her and went overseas. She became Marina's stepmother. Olivia was long past that. She even had a thing or two to say to Chloe. "Does it really matter to you whether I have long or short hair?" Olivia looked at Chloe calmly and continued, Mrs. Carlton, you never even sent me a postcard throughout these years. Now, you're trying to play the part of a loving mother. Aren't you ashamed? Anyway, your sudden display of concern is so embarrassing to me that I could die. What did you call me? Chloe looked at Olivia in disbelief. Mrs. Carlton, did you forget that you divorced my father years ago? Your husband is now Mr. Carlton. Am I mistaken to call you Mrs. Carlton? This was the first time Olivia had been so cold to Chloe. Even during the time Chloe met her after she came back from overseas, Olivia had been gentle. Now, it was as if she was a cold and sharpened blade. Liv, you've changed. How can you say that? I am still your mother, after all. Yes, I've changed. I've only come to realize that humans are despicable and that human nature is ugly and selfish. If I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have been missing my mother all those years. I wouldn't have spent years waiting for someone who would never return. Liv, I know I've let you down. But now that I'm back, I'll do everything in my power to make it up to you. Olivia gazed at Chloe's face. She didn't remember how Chloe looked when she was still a child. She looked largely the same as she was in the pictures. There were only some traces of aging. But she felt completely different from the mother in her memories. When you wanted to leave, you forgot that I existed. But now you claim to want to compensate me. Mrs. Carlton, have you ever thought that perhaps I don't want your compensation? You weren't there when I needed you most. Now that I've survived that, nothing you give me would make me forget that. Liv, Mrs. Carlton, your daughter is over there. I am not worthy of your love. There were people in the world who would give anything up for love. Chloe was such a person. She didn't love Jeff. So when Chris came to her, she threw everything away and left with him. All these years, she went radio silent. She didn't even call once, let alone a word of concern for Olivia. Now that the years have passed, she seemed to have remembered that she had a daughter and claimed to want to compensate her. Olivia no longer cared about that. She looked on at the fancy hall. People's voices reverberated within the walls. It was loud and lively. She wondered if all of these people with dignified appearances had darkness hidden within their hearts. Right now, she no longer needed a family. Nor did she need love. She only wanted to do one thing. That is to cause Ethan pain. She wanted to cause the kind of pain he would never forget, a pain that would follow him for the rest of his life. A smile appeared on her face when she thought about that. Ethan had noticed Olivia as soon as she arrived. He had prepared several evening gowns for her since she said she wanted to come. The gowns came in many colors. But none of them were black. Olivia was wearing a black fitted floor-length gown. Her hair was held in place with hair gel. She was wearing a black veil on her head. It was made with translucent material and decorated with tiny jewels. They would glitter whenever light shone on them. Olivia also wore a pair of diamond earrings. They were simple and elegant. She exuded an air of solidarity, like a black rose in the rain. She looked like she needed a hug but also like she'd claw at those who came close. Olivia looked like an exotic flower that you could only admire from afar. It was as if she felt Ethan's gaze. She raised her glass of wine at him and smiled. "You're Olivia, right?" a cheerful voice beside her said. She turned away from Ethan to look at the person beside her. It was a man that was around her age. He wore a black suit. He looked like a young prince favored by the king. He might not be the most intimidating, but he was surely the prettiest and most delicate. "You are." The young man began to feel nervous when Olivia looked at him. He quickly introduced himself. "I am Colin Moriarty. We met when we were kids. I was chased up a tree by your cat and dared not come down." His description jolted Olivia's memory. She had met many people with weird habits. One of Ethan's friends was a health nut. While everyone else drank absinthe on ice, he would be drinking detox blends in his cold cup. When other people were having fun with pretty ladies, he would be wearing an eye mask and having a footbath. He would also mutter, "If you don't take care of your health now, you'll be suffering from illnesses when you get older." Colin was the weirdest person she knew other than that health nut. He was morbidly afraid of furry animals with sharp teeth. He used to follow Michael to Jeff's birthday parties. But he would always be chased up a tree by Olivia's cat, Snowball. A group of children would laugh at him from below. Only Olivia would help him by grabbing Snowball. She would then coax him with a smile. "Don't be afraid, I have him now. Give me your hand, I'll help you down." "Oh, it's you. Are you still afraid of cats?" The memory of that incident brought a smile to Olivia's face. "I adopted a few cats at home to overcome my fear. I'm over that now. Anyway, is Snowball still doing well?" Her expression darkened. Snowball was a 13-year-old cat. Olivia was pregnant when the Fordhams went bankrupt. Then Jeff had a car accident. When she went to get Snowball, she was nowhere to be found. She's no longer here. Maybe she became a stray, or she could be dead. She had wanted to bring Snowball with her when she got married to Ethan, but he didn't like furry little animals. So she didn't bring it up. Colin saw her disappointed expression and said, "I picked up a white cat the year before. She looked quite old. I don't know if she's your Snowball, though." Emotions sparked on Olivia's face. "Do you have any pictures?" "Yeah." Colin quickly found the picture on his phone. In the picture, a white cat was lying down under a red plum tree. Her blue eyes were looking at the plum blossoms. Olivia was excited. Snowball had a small part of her ear bitten off by a rat when she was a stray. It was her most defining feature. "I came across her when she was wandering on the streets. I saw that her ear looked like the cat I met in my childhood, so I took her in. I didn't expect her to really be your cat. I still have plenty of videos of her. Do you want to take a look?" Olivia sat on a round couch. Her eyes were completely focused on the videos of Snowball. "I can see that you have taken good care of her. She is quite old now, and yet she's still so lively. Her coat is lustrous." Colin smiled and said, "She's very well behaved. She loves to stay under that tree." It was as if she was waiting for someone. "I didn't know before, but I think now I know she's waiting for you." Olivia stared blankly at the cat under the plum tree. Tears were welling up in her eyes. She brushed her fingers on the cold and lifeless screen. It was as if she could feel Snowball's soft body. "It is my fault. I lost her. She lost the Fordham family, Jeff, and her unborn child. She even lost Snowball. Don't worry, Olivia. She's living a good life. I can bring her over to you when you have time." Olivia shook her head and said, "No need. You can take care of her. I can't really take care of her now." "That's fine for me. Can I have your contact information? So that I can send you videos of Snowball next time." Olivia wanted to refuse, but she thought there was no need because she didn't intend to leave this ship alive. She didn't have the heart to refuse. He had helped her take care of Snowball for so long, after all. So she took her phone out and exchanged contact information with him. She even added him on WhatsApp on the spot. Her series of actions was especially insulting to Marina. She tried to agitate Ethan. "Look at her. I told you she's a restless one. How much time has it been? She has already added a man on WhatsApp." "Shut up," Ethan said. "Ethan, we're the most compatible with each other. Olivia only loves your money. She can get with anyone as long as the price is right." Ethan ignored her and left. Marina was angry. She walked toward the other side of the hall with her wine in hand. She whispered something into Callista's ears. Callista was all talk. She had never actually hurt anyone before. She had a nervous expression and said, Are we really doing this?" Marina smiled and said, "I have always trusted you, Callista. I believe you're destined to do great things. If you can take care of this for me, I can promise you that there will be something for the Davises at the Oakland hospital. I will not let you down, Marina." Marina smiled with satisfaction. This was reality. People would do anything to satiate their greed. "Olivia, how are you going to fight me with neither the resources nor anyone to back you up?" Marina thought to herself. Olivia sat with Colin for a while longer. Colin was very gentlemanly and considerate. "Nothing is happening at this hour. The buffet on this ship is decent. Do you want to grab some together, Olivia?" There is still a lot I haven't told you about Snowball. Olivia looked at the time. It was indeed still early. It was not yet time for the main event. Okay. They went to the buffet dining hall together. Ethan's eyes were fixed on Olivia. It was getting on his nerves that she was interacting with another man. He was already regretting his decision to let her come out. He knew that she would be the center of attention no matter where she went. He grunted and said, "Find out where that man came from." "Yes, Mr. Miller." Violin music was playing in the restaurant. There was a variety of foods from different countries. Colin went to the dessert table and picked up some mousse cakes for Olivia. "I remember that you used to love cake, Olivia. You have a good memory, but old people do not like sweet things." "Are you kidding me, Olivia? You're only 21 years old this year, right? You're still in your prime." Olivia had skipped a few grades in school, so she graduated from university earlier than her peers. The laws of Irelandia allowed marriage at the age of 18. Olivia was shocked to hear her own age. "So I am only 21 years old," she said. "That's right. Most people haven't graduated from university yet at this age. You're still in your prime years. You're not old." Colin had a smile on his face. He had the energy of a 17-year-old teenager. Olivia was only a few years older than him, but she felt old inside. It was as if nothing excited her anymore. She lowered her head to look at what he brought her. Those cakes were indeed things that she loved 3 years ago. It had only been 3 years. She has been through too much. "Look, Olivia, isn't the snow pretty?" Colin was full of energy. He was talking about food a second ago, and now his attention had turned to the snow outside the window. He pulled Olivia onto the deck joyfully. The snow was quietly falling under the warm yellow lights. Olivia reached out, and a snowflake fell on her palm. She remembered that day last year. It also snowed then. Marina had stood next to her on the deck. She had an arrogant smile on her face. Marina had said, "Why don't we have a bet? Who would Ethan rescue if we both fell into the ocean at the same time?" The memory of that day pained Olivia deeply. She grabbed the railing tightly. Her eyes were filled with despair. Her expression scared Colin. "What's wrong, Olivia?" Olivia's thoughts drifted away from that painful memory. She looked at the endless expanse of the ocean. It looked like a monster that could devour anything in the night. She concealed the pain in her eyes and said in a gentle tone, "Colin, Snowball does not have long to live. She is already an old cat." Colin looked at her, confused. "Don't worry, Olivia, I'll take good care of her. When she passes, can you please bury her under the plum tree at the Fordham residence?" Colin did not know how to respond. Although Olivia was talking about Snowball, Colin had the feeling that she was talking about her own funeral instead. "I've got it, Olivia. It has to be the tallest tree in the yard. That tree blooms with branches full of plum blossoms in the winter. The scent of the flowers goes well with the cold white snow. I'll be waiting for her there." No one would have guessed that she meant she would be waiting there after she was dead. "Okay, but you can also visit Snowball when you are free." Olivia took off her diamond earrings and handed them to Colin. "I came out in a rush today and don't have anything on me. But please hand these earrings to Snowball. She has always loved shiny little trinkets since she was a kitten." "Okay, if you're too busy, I can also bring her to you if you give me an address. I bet she'll be delighted to see you." "No need." Olivia was running out of time. Ethan arrived just in time to see Colin pulling Olivia onto the deck. They were standing side by side. Both of them were wearing black clothes. Snowflakes were dancing around them. It painted a beautiful picture. Ethan recalled that Olivia once ruffled his hair a few years ago out of boredom. "It's boring how you always just slick your hair back. You should try letting your hair down occasionally. It'll make you look more youthful." At that, Ethan suddenly said, "Am I getting old?" Brent glanced at the youthful Colin and said, "You're mature, Mr. Miller. You're dignified, unlike the younger kids. But she thinks I'm too old." Brent tried to hold back a smile. "Recently, Ethan has been acting like a jealous housewife. You're overthinking things, Mr. Miller. You're only 27 years old. You're still in the best years of your life. Compared to young and immature boys, you're definitely Mrs. Miller's type. You're the type of man that most girls are attracted to. Right after Brent finished talking, two young ladies walked past them. One of them said, I finally got my father to get me 2 tickets to EXO's concert. Let's go together after a few days. I am in love with Ryan's puppy dog eyes. Ethan frowned and said, even Brandy's hold concerts now. Brent covered his mouth with his fist and coughed as he said, no, EXO is an idol group from Karathea that quickly rose to fame after their debut. Ethan was still frowning. Even a dog can debut as a star now. Ethan was a very capable man. He could fly jets and man a submarine. He could even make waves in the corporate world. But he knew nothing about the idol industry. Mr. Miller, she didn't mean a real dog when she said puppy dog eyes. She was talking about young hunks that have just debuted. Young hunks. Brent sighed and said, they are a group of youthful talent show contestants. They look young and youthful and attract female fans of all ages. These fans would sometimes describe them as their babies, puppies, or huskies. Ethan looked at Brent angrily. Brent was taken aback. He started to wonder if he had explained something wrong and made Ethan mad. Then why would you say that I'm Olivia's type? Clearly, she's having a lot of fun talking with a young hunk. Brent was at a loss for words. He was caught in a lie. Olivia didn't know what Ethan was thinking about when he stood there. She only felt a fiery gaze that was directed at her from the window. Suddenly, a wave struck the ship and caused it to sway. The abrupt movement put Olivia off balance. Olivia, Colin quickly grabbed her waist. She fell into Colin's arms due to the momentum. Act fast. Free bonus time is running out. Colin's embrace was not as sturdy as Ethan's. His arms were more slender. Olivia knew that Ethan was extremely possessive. So she pulled away from Colin as soon as she steadied herself. Thanks, it's cold out here, let's go back in. Olivia went back to the dining hall. Ethan, who was standing there a while ago, was no longer there. Colin wanted to get Olivia some food the moment she sat down. She saw Calvin approaching her, so she didn't stop him either. Calvin sat down elegantly with a glass of wine in his hand. They looked like two friends bantering. Olivia whispered, have you found anything out, Calvin? Yeah, I received some information before I boarded the ship. I just didn't have the opportunity to talk to you about it. It is like we guessed. Someone swapped out your medical examination report. Although he kept his head down, we managed to get a few pictures. Take a look and see if you recognize him. Calvin showed Olivia a picture that had been magnified and enhanced. Although the edges were still fuzzy, she could see what the man looked like. This man, do you know him? It was an unfamiliar face. She didn't know who it was. But she had an excellent memory. She knew she had met this man before somewhere. But where was it? What is it? Did you remember something? Calvin whispered. Suddenly, something clicked for Olivia. It was at the Harmony Psychiatric Hospital. The day she went to visit Belle at the psychiatric hospital, Belle had an episode and was out of control. Some security guards held her down. The man in the picture was the one who injected her with some tranquilizer. Olivia swallowed her words. She was afraid that someone might overhear her. Calvin, you've been a big help. Can you help me look into it more? I think I am being targeted by someone. She knew she would alert the people targeting her if she did anything. But no one would suspect Calvin. Calvin was sharp and understood immediately. He did not linger any longer. He smiled and said, all right, let's keep in touch, Olivia. Sure, Calvin. After she sent Calvin on his way, Olivia thought about Belle's incident. It would seem like Belle's death was not an accident. It was because she visited Belle. Someone must have murdered Belle to keep her from revealing secrets. And they covered up the murder as a suicide. Dr. Galloway was looking at her with a suspicious look. But what is there to hide? Wasn't her father's matter already set in stone? Olivia started to recall everything that happened in the past month. This would mean that nothing was an accident. Someone was behind it all. This person clearly knew about her relationship with Ethan and her stomach cancer. The divorce, gravestone, Jeff, Belle, and the swapped medical examination report. This would mean that there was something fishy going on behind Jeff's incident. A chill went down Olivia's spine when she thought about this possibility. This meant that the person was already scheming 2 years ago. Her heart skipped a beat when she thought of Belle's young face. And the way her suicide was reported by the news. It was possible that Belle died because of her. She tightened her grip on her phone. Her gaze was more determined than ever. She had to get to the bottom of this for Jeff, Belle, and for herself. She sent the details about Belle, Dr. Galloway, and the Harmony Psychiatric Hospital to Calvin. She then asked him to investigate them privately. At the same time, she received another message on her phone. It was Colin. She didn't even add a name to his phone number yet since she just got his number. Colin had a white cat as his profile picture. Although he owned a few white cats, the cat in his profile picture was Snowball. She tapped on the message and read, "Olivia, I am not feeling so good." Olivia was confused. Wasn't Colin getting her some food? What happened? She asked where he was and quickly went to look for him. Olivia found Colin in a room. He was leaning on a couch weakly. His face was flushed, and his voice became soft. It sounded like the purring of a cat. He was staring at her helplessly. "Olivia, I feel hot." She placed her hand on his forehead to check. It was indeed burning up. Other than the fever, does anything else hurt? They were only outside for a short while. He shouldn't have gotten sick so quickly unless he had some pre-existing conditions. Olivia began practicing what she learned as a medical student. She racked her brain to think of any conditions that would cause a fever to flare up quickly. Colin unfastened his tie. He also unbuttoned the collar of his shirt and revealed his Adam's apple. He placed his hand over Olivia's and tugged. "Olivia, I feel like I'm on fire." Olivia finally knew what was wrong. She quickly pulled her hand out of Colin's grasp. "What did you eat? I was getting some seafood for you. I saw some freshly squeezed orange juice and took 2 glasses of it. I started to feel sick after I drank half a glass. I wanted to sit down for a while before I went back to you. But my body started to become hotter. Olivia, I feel so sick, am I going to die?" She looked into his eyes. He was just a young man that had just reached legal age. He was still between the phases of adolescence and adulthood. His eyes were pure and innocent. It was possible that he really didn't know what was happening to his body. "You'll live. Hold on, I'll get you a doctor." Olivia looked at the 2 glasses of orange juice. One was full, the other was half full. It was obvious that someone was trying to set her up. This was, without a doubt, Marina's handiwork. Olivia did not know why Marina was so afraid of her. But whatever happened next, Marina asked for it. Olivia was about to give Brent a call. But she fell into Colin's arms. His eyes were unfocused like he was under the influence of drugs. He said in a murmur, "Olivia, I don't want a doctor. I only need you. I felt much better when you placed your palm on my forehead. Please touch me more." Olivia was slightly amused. He was like a cat begging for his owner's attention. "Don't be silly. I don't have a cure on me. Only a doctor can help you." Colin had already lost control. He dragged Olivia onto the couch and started kissing her on her neck. Her pale neck smelled like bergamots. His unfamiliar scent made her feel uncomfortable. "Colin, calm down. I'll call for a doctor now." "I don't want a doctor. I only want you. Olivia, you smell so nice." Olivia raised her hand. She wanted to slap him across his face. But when she saw his innocent face, she hesitated. He was only being dragged into her problems. Before she could slap him, Colin instinctively moved up. He was trying to kiss her on the lips. Thud! Before his lips could touch Olivia's skin, he was knocked out by a chop to his neck. His head fell on Olivia's shoulder. After Colin dropped down, Olivia saw Ethan's face. His expression was cold. "Olivia, what excuse do you have now?" He looked down at her. His gaze was intense. "A storm is coming." Ethan looked at Colin, who was in the way. He pulled him to the side and even kicked him once. Then, he ordered, drag him away. Brent saw that the mood wasn't right. He quickly dragged Colin away and closed the door behind him. Ethan leaned forward and slowly approached Olivia. The temperature dropped as he got closer. He gritted his teeth and ran his fingers across Olivia's face. Ethan then said in an emotionless voice, "Do you know what I hate the most?" Olivia met his angry face and said, "Betrayal and scheming behind your back." He reached out, held her chin, and said, "I've told you before. Do not test me, Olivia." Olivia wanted to tell him about her discovery. But the evidence she had on her could only prove that her medical examination report had been swapped out. She didn't have any hard evidence. In the end, he would just blame her for telling lies. She swallowed the words that she was about to say. She preferred to humiliate him after the truth was out. Apparently, Ethan was also not in the mood to listen to her excuses. Olivia originally thought that Marina was the one behind all the schemes. She was the only one who had the motive to do so. Then she thought about what happened at Collington Cove last time. Marina had ordered her to kneel and tried to disfigure her. It was clear that Marina's tricks were only at the level of a jealous woman. She was not on the same level as the person behind everything that had happened. In addition, Marina didn't know about her stomach cancer. If not, she'd definitely be turning things up a notch. She wouldn't have kept to the mild tactics she had been using. Olivia ruled out Marina as the mastermind. She rolled her eyes and put her hands around Ethan's neck. Her sudden show of affection puzzled Ethan. How long has it been since he saw her smile like that? It was a pure and beautiful smile. It was like a flower in the rain, being cleansed of dirt and hatred. He fell for her all over again. She whispered seductively, "Why don't you replace the traces he left on me with yours?" Meanwhile, Callista was reporting the good news to Marina. "It is done, Marina." Marina pushed aside the women who were fawning over her and went to a corner with her. "Are you sure?" Marina whispered. "Definitely. I saw Colin drink the juice with my own eyes. I also saw Olivia enter the room. She was in there for quite a while. Let's wait a few minutes and go in. They definitely did it." Marina sighed in relief and patted Callista on the shoulder. "You did great." Callista then added, "I have another suggestion, Marina. Speak. If you want to ruin Olivia's reputation, we need to be more forceful. The best outcome would be that she never recovers from it." Marina looked at her with approval and said, "Go on. Everyone on the ship tonight is rich and powerful. It's an open secret that everyone has skeletons in their closets. They will only talk about what happened with Olivia for a few days and forget all about it. It's inconsequential. That bitch will be up and about again after that. What do you have in mind?" "I have a few close friends that are live streamers. I can have them start up a live stream later and have their followers spread it around. Think about it. A scandal of a rich heir on a cruise ship. Wouldn't that news blow up all over the country? We should go big on this." Marina also knew that social media was important nowadays. This incident would have enough impact to garner the attention of the public. When Olivia was caught in the act, it would make Ethan hate her. It would also destroy her reputation for life. She would forever be shunned by society. "This is an excellent idea, Callista. I knew I was right about you." Marina was very excited. She couldn't wait to see Olivia be mocked by everyone. "Marina, I'll contact my friends now. You should also do something. Round up the nosy women. It'll be fun to see that bitch get humiliated publicly." The more she thought about it, the more excited Marina got. She had never been insulted like that in her life. Now, she would return it to Olivia 1,000-fold. She went beside Chloe, who was surrounded by people. Chloe saw her and waved at her. "Marina." Although Chloe had tried her best to be good to Marina all these years, Marina never saw her as her mother. Chris Carlton and Helen Gibson were promised to each other before they were born. Chris was cold to Helen after they were married, so she spent her days in depression. When Marina was only a few years old, she passed away. As soon as she died, Chris took the chance to remarry. Marina always blamed Chloe for everything that happened. For this reason, Marina had never stopped making life hard for Chloe. She even schemed and caused Chloe to miscarry. That incident also caused Chloe to become infertile. On the surface, Marina had a peaceful relationship with Chloe. But only she knew how much she hated Chloe. To make matters worse, Chloe was Olivia's mother. So she also vented her anger toward Olivia on Chloe. She would not have paid any attention to Chloe in the past. But today, she placed her hand in Chloe's palm for the first time and held her hands. They presented an image of a loving pair of mother and daughter to the public. Chloe was secretly delighted. Marina had blamed her for Helen's death for so many years. She was a mother, too, so she understood how Marina felt. She poured all the love she had for Olivia onto Marina. No matter what Marina did to her, she thought that Marina would one day come to understand her. Chloe was overjoyed when Marina took her hand. It felt like Marina was starting to open up to her. The people around them started showering praises on them. Marina saw that the time was almost right. She asked, "Mother, where is Olivia? She's been on the ship for so long. Why hasn't she come to say hi yet? She's a stubborn one. She's not as well-mannered as you. Just leave her be." Chloe recalled Olivia's cold demeanor. She didn't want Olivia to ruin the atmosphere. "How can we do that? If she's harboring resentment against you, I'll have to give her a talking to. You've been thinking about her all this time. It's a happy occasion today. You can take this chance to make up with her." Chloe couldn't argue with that. She would prefer if Marina and Olivia made up. She would no longer need to be walking on eggshells between them. "All right, but I have no idea where she is. She should be over there. Let's go find her together." Marina led a group of rich middle-aged ladies toward where Olivia was. Meanwhile, Callista was gathering a group of her influencer friends. They all started live streams. The audience members of the live streams marveled at how grand and fancy the cruise ship was. "So this is how the wealthy enjoy themselves. It's fancier than my wildest imaginations. It's no wonder that celebrities are clamoring to marry into rich families. I just caught a glimpse of an emerald necklace on a lady. That piece is worth millions. Some people are just born with silver spoons in their mouths. Unlike us normal people, we're destined to a life of labor." One of the streamers looked at the chat and said, "I'll be showing you guys the buffet dining hall now. There are up to 1,000 types of food here. Watch closely. A lot of the food here is hard to get anywhere else. The decor is also very luxurious." The streamers were all trying to retain the viewers with interesting things on the ship. They were all excited and couldn't wait to get Olivia's affair on camera. It would definitely bring more viewers in. Marina smiled when she saw that everything was ready. She didn't see Ethan among the crowd. But it didn't matter. Things were about to blow up. She signaled one of the streamers, and she quickly came forward. She said, "Dear viewers, it's time to witness something incredible." She felt conflicted and anxious but pushed open the door with shaky hands. As the door was opening, Marina was still holding Chloe's hand with a smile. She said gently, "Mother, we're a family after all. You can invite Olivia to our house more often in the future." "I'm glad to hear you say that, Marina. I was so afraid that you two wouldn't get along." Chloe had no idea what Marina was scheming. She was still dreaming of the day Marina could get along with Olivia. No one knew how excited Marina was at the moment. She had imagined all sorts of scenarios where Olivia was put on the spot and how pathetic she would be. The door opened slowly. Everyone was stunned when they saw the people in the room. Marina's smile froze. There were two people entangled on the couch. Ethan had taken off his suit. He was only wearing his shirt. A few of the buttons were loose. A lot of his skin was showing. It was a sight to behold. Compared to his normally meticulous and dignified appearance, he looked wild and lustful. He was holding a woman in his arms. He hid the woman's face in his chest as soon as the door opened. The crowd could only see the woman's slim waist and bare arms. No one knew he was getting with his ex-wife. They thought he was just caught red-handed in an affair. It was a common occurrence within the circles of the wealthy. There were a lot of men who were gentlemanly on the surface but were extremely lecherous when no one was looking. But this was Ethan. Many women had tried to get on his bed in the past. But they were all thrown out, with their limbs broken. Marina had been the only fiancé he had announced. He had the image of a man who loved his partner deeply. In the eyes of the crowd, an exemplary man was having an affair at his son's first birthday party. The son he had with Marina. Callista recognized that the woman in his arms was Olivia. Her face paled instantly. She knew that Marina's success was dependent on Ethan's support. And yet she had stuck her nose into Ethan's affair. She messed up. Needless to say, the Oakland hospital shares promised by Marina were no longer on the table. The Davies family might not even survive the fallout of this incident. Marina was the biggest loser in this incident. She even asked a group of streamers to start live streams. Initially, there were only a few thousand viewers. But now, the chat went crazy. Damn, I thought we were going to look at a seafood buffet. What am I looking at now? I am not sure, but I sure am loving it. Isn't that Mr. Miller? They said he has the body of a Greek god. Damn, he looks hot. Yeah, he is indeed very handsome. But that woman in his arms isn't Mrs. Miller, right? I thought he was better than this. More and more people were tuning into the live streams. The influencers were at their wits' end. They knew they shouldn't be interfering in Ethan's matters. They quickly turned off their live streams. But the images from their live streams were already saved by some of their viewers. Those images were already spreading like wildfire on the internet. The atmosphere in the room was eerie. Marina did not expect her scheme to backfire so spectacularly. She looked at the woman in Ethan's arms. Her face was still mostly covered up. Marina did not understand why Ethan still loved Olivia so much. She didn't understand why he chose to protect Olivia instead of their reputation. Chloe also realized that it was Olivia in Ethan's arms. She was also stunned. She had just returned to Arlandia recently. She didn't know the story between Olivia and Ethan. She only knew that Ethan had an ex-wife, but everyone around her did not want to talk about the ex-wife. She had thought that Ethan hated Olivia to the bone. But it didn't seem like it was the case now. The onlookers had different expressions on their faces. Some of them pitied Marina, while others looked at her mockingly. Marina had been excited, but now she felt a chill throughout her entire body. It was as if her blood stopped flowing. Her body was shaking uncontrollably, and her heart felt like it ached with every beat. After a while, she found her voice and said, "What? What are the two of you doing?" The words were familiar. Her shaky voice revealed her uneasiness. Olivia wanted to raise her head and look at Marina's expression. She wondered if Marina's face was as pale as hers was all those years ago. Marina must have felt awful. A moment ago, she was fawned over by everyone. Now, she was mocked and ridiculed. Olivia knew that Ethan's affair during his son's first birthday party would be all over the internet. She wanted to ruin Ethan and Marina's reputation. Ethan's arm was pressed tightly against her head. It stopped her from moving. She wasn't too happy about that. Ethan was still holding Olivia in his arms. Everyone was still waiting for his explanation to Marina. His first reaction was to pick up the suit he took off and cover Olivia's exposed skin with it. He then carried her in his arms and looked at Marina condescendingly. The coldness in his eyes was obvious. "You'll pay for your stupidity," Ethan said. He then walked away with large strides. He didn't offer any explanation or consolation. There was only contempt. Marina was left behind by Ethan like she was nothing. Ethan didn't offer an explanation to Marina. Needless to say, he didn't feel the need to offer one to anyone else. Everyone was waiting for the fight between the fiancé and the mistress. It didn't happen. From the moment they barged into the room to the moment Ethan left, he was nothing but proud and dignified. Instead, it was the mastermind, Marina, who was in an embarrassing situation. The crowd dispersed, but they were still making fun of her. And she thought that Mr. Miller loved her more than anything. That was too embarrassing. If even my boyfriend dared to cheat on me, I would have already slapped them both to Mars. Let alone my husband. Tisk. Would you have done it if Mr. Miller was your husband? It is a common occurrence for people like him. Would you really make a scene because he had a mistress? That wouldn't work with men like him. He might even outright divorce you. If you don't want to be Mrs. Miller, there are plenty of others who would want to. Are you sure you wouldn't regret that? That's true. Mrs. Miller over here gathered her friends and family to put someone else on the spot. But instead, she was the one who was humiliated. How pathetic. A minute ago, she was the revered Mrs. Miller. A minute after that, she became a pitiful worm that everyone made fun of. How did it turn out like that? Callista knew that she was in deep trouble. She didn't know that Olivia's old man husband, whom she made fun of, was actually Ethan. She wanted to comfort Marina. She stammered and said, "Marina, I'm sorry, Marina slapped Callista across the face. Her slap was full of resentment and rage. Callista's face swelled up quickly, but she didn't dare to say anything. Fuck off. Callista ran away while holding her face. Chloe came back to her senses and wanted to comfort her. Marina, you. Marina glared at her and said, "Shut up. You should know your place. Do you really think you're my mother because my dad likes you? A woman like you. Don't make me laugh. How can you talk to me like that, Marina? This is how I've always talked to bitches. Go away if you don't want to get slapped, too." The incident spread like wildfire across the internet instantly. Countless editors woke up in the middle of the night to run the story. It only took a couple dozens of minutes for the news to appear on all platforms. Marina was in her room, smashing anything she could get her hands on. Meanwhile, Olivia was still in Ethan's arms. Olivia raised her head from his chest when there was no one else around. They were standing on the deck, and it was still snowing. Ethan said in an icy tone, "Are you happy now?" He wasn't dumb. He knew that Olivia wouldn't have tried to have sex with him in a place like that. He had caught on before everything happened. He could have stopped it, but tonight, he didn't want to. He didn't expect Marina to be so stupid. Her own trap backfired against her. Olivia winked at him and said, "Why would I be unhappy? She was the one who wanted to set me up. Are you feeling sorry for her?" Ethan's eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. He said to Olivia with a scowl, "Olivia, teaching her a lesson is not worth risking your own reputation. Did you truly win?" Ethan was not one to reveal his emotions easily. But Olivia's actions almost made him lose his cool. "Have you ever given it a thought? On the surface, you have humiliated her. But it doesn't change anything fundamentally. Everyone is well aware of how messed up the circle of the wealthy is. It will only be played for laughs. Her position is not going to be affected. On the other hand, you would be marked as a mistress if I didn't cover up your face in time. You would have been known as a mistress from today onward. How would you live like that? You would have won a battle but lost the war." Olivia met with his angry gaze and smiled. "You're smiling. You're still in the mood to smile. Do you know what could have happened? I would be mocked and made fun of by the masses. What else? If things really got to that, wouldn't you be happy instead? Why are you so mad?" Olivia's words seemed to have struck a chord. She put her hands around his neck and smiled gently. "I thought you hated me. What? Are you getting worried for me?" Ethan pulled her hands down. He said in a flustered tone, "Torturing you is my right. It has nothing to do with anyone else." Olivia suddenly smiled as the cold wind blew at her. "Ethan, would you regret what you have done to me if you found out that my father did not hurt your sister?" Olivia's words shocked Ethan, causing ripples of emotions to stir in his heart. Ethan leaned in closer and asked icily, "What are you talking about?" The more the mastermind tried to hide things, the more sure Olivia was that something was wrong with Leia's death. But one thing she was sure about was that the mastermind must be someone powerful. He was able to manipulate things under Ethan's nose. Olivia decided that it wasn't time for her to reveal the truth yet. She changed the subject and looked at the horizon. "Look, the snow tonight is beautiful. Did you hear what I said, Olivia?" Ethan was not a fan of cold winter nights. He preferred sunlight. It brought life to the world. The cold winter winds only served to devour everything. It covered the earth in one color. Olivia reached out and caught a snowflake. She was smiling, but her expression was cold. She stood before him and asked solemnly, "Today is the day our baby died, Ethan. Have you ever spared him a thought this past year? For even just a moment?" Ethan's arms tightened around her shoulders. He pursed his lips and said, "Olivia, that was our child. Of course, I've thought." Olivia smiled lightly and said, "I thought he was only a tool for you to exact revenge on me." "Why would you think that?" Ethan's brows furrowed tightly. He felt like something was off about Olivia tonight. He wanted to say something. But due to the incident with Marina, he had to go and handle the mess that she made. Awaiting him was not only a tearful Marina but also the unbearable Carltons. He handed Olivia the keycard to the guest room and said, "Go to the room and get changed. No one would know she was the one with him in the room if she changed." And as for the rumors online, Ethan could easily handle that. He didn't know what Olivia was planning. The fireworks show was brought forward by 2 hours to 8 p.m. to turn people's attention away from the embarrassing incident. The fireworks lit up the dark sky. It also attracted a lot of people to look at it. Many appeared on the snow-crusted deck to look at the fireworks. The deck quickly became very lively. The flashy fireworks allowed the people to temporarily forget about the embarrassing incident. They were all focused on the beautiful fireworks at the moment. Their wealth and power did not stop them from enjoying the fleeting beauty of the fireworks. Callista was crying profusely. Calvin stood beside her and comforted her gently. "You should have known better. You're an adult." Callista was extremely regretful of her actions. Getting slapped by Marina was the least of her worries. Her biggest worry right now was Olivia's position. "How would I know that her man was Mr. Miller? If he knew that I planned everything, not only would I not get the hospital's shares, but the Carlton family would be done for, too. That's why I said you should have known better." "Calvin." Callista did not think too much about it. She still thought that Olivia was Ethan's mistress. Even if she was just a mistress, she was not just any mistress, she was Ethan's mistress. Everyone knew that Ethan was protective of what was his. Callista stomped her leg impatiently. Her face was full of worry. What was she supposed to do now? She would no longer be welcomed in this neighborhood. At that moment, she saw Olivia walking down the corridor. She was afraid of Olivia, but she also hated her. She didn't let up with the insults. "Don't get cocky because you became Mr. Miller's mistress. He is just toying with you. You've offended the Carltons, you'll be in for it now." She still didn't realize that Olivia was Ethan's ex-wife. Calvin was almost impressed at how dumb she was, but it was not his secret to tell. He stood in front of her and said, "Olivia, don't soot her. She doesn't think before she speaks." Olivia nodded at Calvin. They had a tale understanding of the sets they kept. She turned her gaze to Callista and said the soft and stationless voice, "So what if I couldn't choose how to live? I can still choose how I want to die." Callista was stunned by Olivia's icy gaze and was at a loss for words. She whispered, "Calvin, don't you think she's acting weird? What did she mean by that?" "I don't know. I just don't have a good feeling about this." The fireworks show went on. It lit up the night sky until it was as bright as day. Connor never liked loud places. He was throwing a bit of a tantrum. Marina had someone bring him back to his room. It was time for him to sleep. Mina took him in her arms and prepared to bring him back to his room. But Connor pointed at a cake nearby and was fussing over it. "Master Connor, you're not allowed to have desserts at night. You'll get cavities." Connor did not let up. He thought that the cake looked exactly like the ones his mother used to make. He already didn't get to his mother. Why couldn't he get some of the cake that his mother made? Mina had no choice but to relent. She placed him on the floor and said, "One moment, Master Connor. I'll get some for you." Just as she left, Connor saw Olivia walking up the corridor. His eyes brightened up. Connor had always hoped to see Olivia again. Wobbling, he ran toward Olivia. Smiling at him, she reached out to him. "My dear Connor, do you want to leave with me?" Connor did not understand her words. All he knew was that she reached out to him. All he needed to do was to grab hold of her hand. He placed his chubby little hand into Olivia's palm without hesitation, allowing her to raise him up. He held onto Olivia's neck. He rubbed his face against Olivia like a puppy before saying in an affectionate tone, "Mama." Olivia looked at him lovingly, saying, "Silly boy, I'm not your mother. You should call me Aunt." At the moment, everyone else was gathered at the front of the ship to watch the fireworks show. She was able to carry Connor away with no issues. Olivia brought Connor to her room, where there was cake. She put a birthday hat on Connor and lit up the candle. She then sang him a birthday song in a gentle tone. Connor did not know what she was doing, but he smiled at whatever she did. Olivia took an emerald necklace out from a small box. It had a cute design, and the emerald was shiny. Connor's name was engraved on the necklace. "I had prepared this for my son. But I didn't get to give it to him. Since you share his name, I'll give it to you." Connor reached out to grab the necklace. The way he laughed looked a lot like Ethan. Olivia put the necklace on his neck and kissed him on the cheek. "Happy birthday, Connor." She looked at him lovingly. Thinking of her child, he probably would have looked like this if he was still alive. Olivia cut 2 slices of cake. She even removed the cream and fruits from them. Connor grabbed a spoon, but he didn't know how to use it yet. He wanted to eat the cake but wasn't able to. He could only wave his chubby little hands around. He also leaned toward the plate and licked at the cream. Some of the cream got on his nose. Olivia looked at him with a gentle look, saying, "Look at you, you got cream everywhere." She ate the cake in big mouthfuls with a smile. But her tears just wouldn't stop flowing. Seeing her tears, Connor tried to comfort her clumsily, "Cry, cry." Olivia wiped at her tears, picked up Connor, and said softly, "Little one, I had a baby of my own too." Connor didn't understand her. Reaching out, he wiped at the tears on Olivia's face. "But my baby has gone someplace far away. I miss him every day. Little one, why do you have to be Marina's child?" Olivia sat down with him in her arms. She kept talking, not caring that he didn't understand. "I used to be a little princess at your age. I had loving parents. But my mother left one day. I chased her car until I fell on the ground. I wasn't able to catch up to her. My father was good to me. He raised me and educated me. Then, I fell in love with a man. I had a baby with him. Later on, my father fell sick and my family separated. My baby was gone. Even my lover became my enemy. Why am I such a failure?" Connor hugged Olivia with his arms, feeling her tears falling onto his neck. He didn't know why she was crying so much. But he knew he didn't want her to cry. "Mama, no, no," he said with great difficulty. But he wasn't able to say anything else. Olivia wiped away her tears. She then brought Connor to the deck on the 2nd floor, according to her original plan. The winds were strong. Connor was snuggled up in Olivia's arms as the snow swirled around them. Olivia pointed at a spot in the ocean and said, "My baby disappeared in this part of the ocean. He wasn't as lucky as you. He stopped breathing as soon as he was taken out of my body. He never had the chance to look at the sun. Little one, do you think he feels lonely at the bottom of the ocean? Why don't you go and keep him company? The water might be a bit chilly. You might feel uncomfortable for a bit, but it'll all be over soon. And finally, you'll completely disappear from this world. That would scar him for life. You're his favorite son. That would surely break his heart, right?" Olivia pinched his face with a sad smile. "At least you're not like my baby. His existence was a tragedy from the minute he was conceived to the moment he passed." She held Connor's hand as they slowly walked to the edge of the ship. "Connor, look. It also snowed heavily like this last year. Son, you must be lonely in the ocean. Don't worry, I've brought a friend for you." The bottomless ocean was like a monster with its mouth wide open. It roared loudly like it wanted to devour everything. Smiling gently at Connor, Olivia said, "I'm so sorry, darling. I won't be able to repay you for your sacrifice." Mina got the cake and turned around, only to see that Connor was gone. She was used to him going off on his own since he learned to walk. But he could never get too far with his tiny limbs. She held the cake in her hand as she went to look for him. She called out, "Master Connor, where are you hiding?" It only took her a short while to get the cake. How could a baby that just learned to walk disappear from the long corridor? She looked at the railing. Connor shouldn't have been able to fall over it. But she panicked and couldn't think straight. Dropping the cake, she ran toward the bow of the ship. When she found Ethan, she told him, "Mr. Miller, Master Connor has gone missing." Marina gave her a slap before saying, "All I asked you to do was put him to bed. How could you lose him like that? You're dead if something happens to my baby." Ethan glared at her, then turned to look at Brent. "Go check the security cameras. Find him." Mina was scared out of her wits. Master Connor disappeared in the time it took me to get him some cake. Would he have fallen into the ocean? That's impossible. He's too big to squeeze under the railing and too short to climb over it. Unless someone threw him over. Ethan quickly refuted her theory. Someone. Who would dare to harm his child on this ship? Unless. Olivia's face flashed in Ethan's mind. It couldn't be. She loved Connor so much. She wouldn't hurt him. Ethan disappeared from the deck. Everyone else was panicking. The ship was so big and the child so small. If he really fell off the ship, he wouldn't even be able to call for help. On the other hand, Ethan was running straight to the top floor. The tragedy with Olivia's baby happened there. Did she really bring Connor up there? Ethan ran with all his strength, but the snow was falling heavily, obstructing. Olivia's words rang in Ethan's mind. "Look, the snow tonight is so beautiful. Today is the day our baby died, Ethan. Have you ever spared him a thought this past year? Even for just a moment? I thought he was only a tool for you to exact revenge on me." Ethan had it all wrong. She thought Olivia's target was Marina, but he didn't think about Olivia's dead child. She purposefully picked today for her revenge. It was so that she could sacrifice Connor to her dead son on the day he passed. That was a great way to get back at Marina and himself. Ethan was anxious and furious. Olivia was still the same person she used to be. She had never given up on her extreme thoughts. His heart went through a roller coaster of emotions in the span of about a minute. His palms were already drenched in cold sweat. He sprinted to the top floor as fast as he could. The first round of the fireworks show was over. The next round was in the middle of preparation. At this moment, it was like the entire world had fallen silent and dark. Only the sound of Ethan's running could be heard. There was no one there on the deck of the second floor, so Ethan ran to the edge of the deck. The ocean was still roaring, waves still crashing onto the hull of the ship. Ethan didn't see anyone. Was he too late? He felt a chill sweeping over him before it spread from top to toe. Suddenly, Mina's voice came from downstairs. She was excited to tears. "How did you get here, Master Connor? You scared me to death. I've found him. I've found Master Connor." Hearing that, Ethan was relieved and slumped onto the ground. He was sweating all over from the running, but the wind made him feel chilly. He put a hand over his chest, where he could feel his heart beating very quickly. Smiling, he covered his face. It was the first time in his life that he felt such intense emotional swings. He didn't notice Olivia, who was hiding behind a wooden barrel. She looked at the snow that was falling from the sky. She gave up on her plan to cause Ethan deep hurt at the final moment. Honestly, she didn't have the heart to take Connor's life. He was still so young. He shouldn't have to pay for the crimes of Ethan and Marina. How evil would she have to be able to murder a child? On one hand, Olivia hated how weak she was. On the other hand, she felt ashamed that she tried to do something like that. She turned all the guilt she had into an explanation. Maybe there was a lot of misunderstanding between her and Ethan. Connor shouldn't have to pay for these mistakes. Her plan used to be dying with Connor in the ocean, but there was one more thing she hadn't done. That was to uncover the truth of what happened all those years ago. After Ethan left, she dragged her tired body back to her room. 10 minutes after that, Ethan appeared in her room. His appearance would mean that he had guessed that she was the one who took Connor. She didn't remove the necklace she gave Connor when she let him go. Ethan was the one who designed the necklace. Of course, he would know who it came from. There was still the half-eaten cake and the candles on the table in the room. Olivia was prepared to be tortured by Ethan for what she did. She had given up the best chance she had at hurting him. She thought the only thing waiting for her was endless torture from him. His footsteps got close, and the room was completely silent. Raising her head, Olivia saw Ethan eating the leftover cake without speaking. He just kept eating. He never liked eating cakes. But here he was, eating cake without asking for an explanation. After he put down the fork, he took a tissue and wiped his lips. Then, he walked toward Olivia. Olivia thought he was still going to torture her, but he stopped before her. He said in a deep voice, "One day, you'll realize that not going through with it today was the best decision you could have made." He left the room after he said those words. Olivia did not understand his intentions. He did not yell at her, and neither did he throw a temper tantrum. He didn't even question her actions. What did he mean by the best decision she could have made? The door closed with a bang, and a new round of fireworks started. Looking at the fireworks, they burned brightly but only for an instant. She felt like her life was like that. She shone brightly for a short while before endless sorrow and darkness were all that was left. As everyone was enjoying the lively atmosphere, Olivia suddenly heard a woman scream. "Master Connor!" Was she just hearing things? Next moment, she saw a few men run past her door in a rush. One of them was holding Connor. She didn't know what was going on, but she was already running after them before she knew it. Connor's shrill cries rang across the corridor, but everyone else was focused on the fireworks show. Most of the security guards were busy helping set off the fireworks. Mina's leg seemed to have been shot, so she couldn't run after the men. She could only watch as they took Connor away. Olivia realized that she was not the only one on the ship who was scheming against Connor. She was thankful that she changed out of her evening gown before this. It allowed her to keep up with the men. She ran like her life depended on it. As the men were starting up their speedboat, she knew she wouldn't make it in time. She took a chance and leapt toward the boat without regard for her own safety. She managed to get on. The men were planning to escape from the scene. They didn't expect someone to suddenly appear on their boat, and it was a woman who was out of breath, no less. Olivia's stamina was not what it was back in high school, where she was able to run more than 1,000 yards without needing a break. She wanted to act tough in front of these men. But she couldn't stop panting when she said, "Put him down." She couldn't even complete a sentence properly. She also had to grab hold of the edges of the boat to prevent herself from falling off. Even she was amazed that she was able to catch up with such a sickly body. Reality once again proved that people were more forgiving toward pretty women. The men were nervous when they saw another person appear on the boat suddenly. They had raised their guns at Olivia's forehead. But she suddenly fainted before she was able to finish her sentence. The man closest to her even grabbed at her instinctively to stop her from falling. "What do we do about this woman, boss? Should we throw her overboard?" Faint light shone on Olivia's face. She looked innocent and harmless. Her white down jacket was swaying in the wind, making her look even weaker and sicklier. The leader of the group looked at her face and said, "No need. Let's go." The speedboat quickly left the vicinity of the cruise ship. One of the men said, "Is she serious? She ran all the way to our boat to become a prisoner." Mina watched everything go down at the railing. She was anxious and angry. She was only noticed by the security guards after she dragged herself out of the corridor with a bleeding leg. "Master Connor has been taken." Mina ignored her bleeding leg and crawled her way to Ethan. Marina's first reaction was to slap her. "How could my son be taken by someone out of nowhere? Why can't you take care of a child? How many times?" Mina retold the entire incident from the beginning. When Marina heard that Olivia also got on the boat, her first reaction was to pin the blame on her. "I knew Olivia was up to no good. She must have been the one who hired those men to take our child. Ethan, you have to get Connor back." Ethan felt a strong urge to slap Marina, but he was not in the habit of hitting women. He thought no one in their right mind could have said what Marina said. Holding back his anger, he said, "Get her out of here." Brent had already begun investigating. Ethan was touched when he saw footage of Olivia recklessly going after the group of men. He knew better than anyone that if she wanted to hurt Connor, she would have done it long ago. She did love Connor so much so that she went after him even when she knew the men had guns on them. Looking worried, Brent whispered, "Mr. Miller, could your identity have been exposed? Did they take Master Connor to exchange him for that item?" Ethan pursed his lips, his icy temperament overwhelming. No, Ethan shut down that assumption immediately. He replayed the footage of the men shooting their guns. Although they disguised themselves, their pistols were visible. He zoomed in on the footage and said, "Look at their firearms. Those are MK-23s. They were the standard issue weapons of the Special Forces in the early days. These pistols are comparable to the Desert Eagle in terms of firepower, but their downside is apparent. They're too bulky. Even without silencers, they're not easy to use with one hand. They wouldn't think to use such clumsy and outdated weapons. Secondly, look at how these two ran. That isn't how trained Special Forces retreat. So these guys are not them. If they were here, they would have held the whole ship hostage and not just a child." Brent didn't understand. If it isn't them, who else would dare to cross the Millers? Ethan put his hands behind his back as he looked into the distance. He said with certainty, "No matter who they are, they put so much effort into this operation. Since they aren't after the life of someone, they must have done it for the money." That's true. Ms. Carlton spent a lot of money advertising this event. Especially this fireworks show. She spent a few $100,000 on that. This huge amount must have spurred someone to kidnap Master Connor. With a sigh, Brent said, "Ms. Carlton also announced the details of the event. We were supposed to handle the security, but she insisted that her uncle do it instead. It would have been fine if they were just trying to line their pockets, but Master Connor got kidnapped. Even Ms. Fordham was taken." Ethan frowned at the mention of Olivia. If the kidnappers only wanted a ransom, they would not harm Connor yet. But Olivia had put herself in danger by throwing herself at them. The kidnappers were well prepared. They chose to carry out their plan on sea and not on land. They would have had a hard time trying to evade surveillance on land. On the other hand, mobile phones didn't even have a signal at sea. So it was going to be hard to track someone. Ethan's biggest fear was that they were based on an uninhabited island. That would make their search way harder. In the following hours, he made a lot of calls and set up a detailed rescue plan. Even after that, Ethan couldn't relax for a moment. His brows were still furrowed with worry. The cruise ship docked ahead of schedule before the sun was even up. The guests did not know what happened and were wondering why the event ended prematurely. After all the guests had disembarked, Marina began to throw a temper tantrum. "Why haven't you sent people after Olivia? That bitch colluded with the kidnappers to take my son away. Brent felt a strong desire to slap her when he heard what she said. He kicked the culprit that allowed the kidnapping to happen into the room. It was Marina's uncle, Marcus. Marina became furious when she saw that. "What's the meaning of this? You're not looking for Olivia, and instead, you brought my uncle here. You want to know what? Why don't you explain yourselves first?" Ethan sat on the couch with a scowl before slamming a stack of receipts on the table. "I allocated a budget of $1 million for Connor's birthday party. How much did he line his pockets with? Marcus was Helen's only brother. After she passed, the Carltons had always treated him well, but he was used to slacking off. He was also a compulsive gambler. It was apparent that Marina insisted that he organize the birthday party so that he could skim some profits from it. It would have been fine if you just wanted your uncle to make a profit. But have you ever considered if he was up for the job? He tried to reduce costs by purchasing food that was no longer fresh, which was fine. But he fired the professional security team that I paid a lot of money for. He replaced that team with some hooligans off the streets who have no experience as bodyguards. They were all busy lighting fireworks and watching the fireworks show while the kidnapping went down. Their lack of professionalism caused a major security hazard. "Mr. Miller, please let me explain." Ethan had already stood up, his figure casting a looming shadow on Marcus. He walked toward him menacingly as his eyes glowed with rage. "In order to save money, you kept the original chefs but sent their apprentices away. You hired people at a low price to handle their jobs. What did you think this place was? Your backyard?" Standing up, Marcus tried to explain, I only wanted to help you cut some costs. Your money doesn't grow on." Ethan kicked him on the shoulders, causing the man to cry out in pain and beg for mercy. Then, he met Ethan's rage-filled gaze and fell silent. "Those people were able to get on the ship because you hired people without conducting background checks. My son was kidnapped because you tried to skim profits. If anything happens to him, I'll feed you to the sharks." Marina looked at the receipts and the quotations. The eggs alone cost 5 times the market price. She had known that Marcus was greedy, but she didn't think he'd do it to this extent for the sake of profits. "Uncle, this is all your fault." Mariana threw the quotations on Marcus's face. Marcus was still trying to explain, "How would I know it would end up like this? I had hired someone to train them beforehand. You can't blame me for Connor's kidnapping." Ethan stepped on Marcus's shoulder harder. Glaring at Marcus, he said, "If you tell one more lie, I'll cut off your tongue." Marcus instinctively covered his mouth with his hands, his whole body trembling in fear. Ethan felt the urge to kill Marcus when he was reminded of the fact that Olivia and Connor were taken because of him. Brent returned from outside. He said with a heavy expression, "We tried to track the GPS on Ms. Fordham's phone, but there's..." Marina quickly ran toward Ethan and said, "It has to be Olivia. You just need to look into her. In the worst-case scenario, you still have Jeff in your hands. If we threaten her with Jeff, she'll give Connor back." Ethan stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Marina, his eyes filled with restrained anger. "Ethan, Marina, sometimes I wonder what nonsense goes through your brain." Leaning forward slightly, he whispered, "I'd like to split your head open and take a look, if not for Kurt's sake." His deep voice shook Marina, who looked at him in fear. But all she could see was anger in his eyes, an anger so fiery it seemed like it could burn her up. Ethan was at the verge of losing control. He was trying his best to hold back his anger, but his eyes revealed the raw anger and hatred he had for her. "You'd better pray nothing happens to them. If not, no one will be able to save Marcus. Not even if Kurt returns from the grave and begs for me to spare him." Marina's back was covered in a cold sweat. She slumped onto a chair powerlessly. Was it really not Olivia's doing? What happened to her child? Ethan stood before a map. Brent analyzed it and said, "There's an archipelago nearby. It encompasses over 300 islands. A lot of those are unrecorded desert islands. Send drones to scout out the islands. You can exclude the inhabited islands. Focus your efforts on the islands that have complex terrains and don't have a lot of natural resources. Be careful not to alert the kidnappers. And keep the operation a secret." "Understood." "Have the fingerprints on the bullet been extracted?" Brent quickly said, "Yes, I've also run them through our database. There are no matches yet. If we can't track them using the fingerprints, try looking into the bullet and the guns. Go look around the black market. These guns are not very common these days." "Yes, Mr. Miller." Olivia woke up in a daze, but she remembered what happened. Quickly sitting up, she opened her eyes. She wanted to see where Connor was, but a dagger was placed on her throat. The person holding said in a raspy voice, "Don't move." Olivia saw that she was in a run-down cabin. This place shouldn't be far from the seaside. She could hear the sound of waves crashing against the rocks. She looked at the man beside her with the corner of her eye. She saw that the man wore black. She felt that the blade on her neck was very sharp, and she also saw that Connor was not in the room. Tensing, she said, "I won't move. Go easy on me." The man asked, "Tell me, why did you jump on the boat last night?" Although she did not know who these men were, She knew that the enemy of her enemy was her friend. I did it for the kid. According to what I know, you're not his mother or his nanny. You risked everything for a stranger's son. A stranger's son? It's the son of my enemy, to be exact, Olivia said with a smirk. She continued to explain without the man asking. 2 years ago, I had a happy family. I had a loving husband until a woman appeared. She had a baby with him, and she pushed me off a cruise ship a year ago in winter. I was pregnant. Then, I lost my child and my husband. My father became ill and fell into a deep coma. My family became bankrupt. The woman took my husband and became the new Mrs. Miller. She even got to hold a birthday party for her son. Olivia gritted her teeth in anger. The man did not expect to get such a convoluted story from a single question. You're... Olivia closed her eyes and slowly said, Ethan Miller's ex-wife. The man laughed mockingly. Everyone thinks that Ethan is a devoted man, that he's always been a gentleman. No one mentioned that he had an ex-wife. Clenching her fingers tightly, Olivia said with a sorrowful expression, I was just a plaything to him. He wouldn't have allowed anyone to know about me. Last night was the anniversary of my son's passing. I snuck on the ship to steal Connor away, but you beat me to the punch. Your son died, but why did you want to steal their son? Olivia said slowly, I wanted his son to accompany mine in death. Have you any idea how I've been living this past year? I've never had a good night's sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see my son on the operating table. Olivia got emotional as she started to cry. Her tears fell onto the dagger's blade, tracing along the blade to the man's hand. Moving the dagger away, he exclaimed, Why are you crying? I didn't do anything to you. Olivia turned into a vengeful woman. She didn't care that the man beside her wasn't Ethan. She just kept cursing and complaining about how bad of a person Ethan was. Meanwhile, outside the cabin, Tom was chewing on a blade of grass. He had a mischievous expression as he said to Jerry, Hey, do you think Jack has fallen for the woman? He's been with her the whole night. Stop talking nonsense. He's seen his fair share of women. He won't fall for her so easily. I bet he thinks she's suspicious. He's keeping an eye on her so that she doesn't escape. If she was suspicious, he would have thrown her overboard last night. If he didn't want her to escape, he could have tied her up. He didn't have to stay up all night and watch over her. He must have fallen for her. Honestly, I've never seen such a beautiful woman before. She should have woken up. Let's go in and take a look. Jack is probably torturing her for information. I hope he doesn't kill her. They took off their masks and opened the door. What they saw stunned them. The usually imposing Jack Stone was standing beside the bed awkwardly, trying to comfort Olivia. You can't bring the dead back with your crying. Olivia was not only sobbing uncontrollably, but she was also using the sleeves of Jack's jacket to blow her nose. Isn't Ethan an asshole? Yeah, he's the biggest asshole ever. That bastard. Why is my life so hard? Although Olivia's crying was a little too much, she did look pitiable against the backdrop of the run-down cabin. On the other hand, Jack with his dagger in hand looked helpless in comparison. When he saw Tom and Jerry at the door, Jack's expression changed. He said to them coldly, Get over here and comfort her. Tom was at a loss for words. Why do we need to comfort the woman you made cry? Jerry was more gentle. He took a grass-woven rabbit out of his pocket and placed it before Olivia. Here, take it. You can have this rabbit if you stop crying. Tom slapped him on the head, saying, She's not a child. That won't work. Olivia looked at the two in front of her. They were young boys, probably around the age of 12 or 13. Their silliness could not be hidden by the masks they were wearing. The man with a pistol was so cold before, but he comforted her as soon as she started crying. They all seemed like good people. But they did kidnap Connor. Why did they do it? Olivia was still sniffling, but she was no longer crying. She looked at the man beside the bed with her teary eyes. He was very tall and wore a mask that covered half his face. She could only decipher his emotions through his exposed lips. Olivia said tentatively, That child stole my son's life. I hate him with every fiber of my being. Can you guys hand him over to me? Jerry quickly said, that won't do. We need him to ask for ransom. When he finished saying that, Tom hit him on the head. Are you dumb? Why would you say that? Can't you even keep a secret? It was a surprise to Olivia. How could someone be bold enough to risk their lives by threatening Ethan for ransom? Perhaps before they could deliver the ransom letter, Ethan's men would have raided their headquarters. How much are you planning to ask for? Olivia prodded. Tom stuck out a finger. He's rich, so we should at least ask for $1 million. Olivia looked at him in disbelief. $1 million? They were risking their lives for only $1 million. Ethan would probably think that they were mocking him. Noticing Olivia's gaze, Tom instantly lost confidence. He's supposed to be rich, right? He should be able to fork out $1 million, right? If not, $500,000 will do. Olivia facepalmed herself. This was her first time feeling sympathy for a bandit. If they asked for $1 million, Ethan would probably let them leave in one piece. But if Ethan saw them asking for $500,000, he would feed them to the sharks. Noticing that Olivia was silent, Jerry spoke up timidly, could it be that he doesn't even have $500,000? Well, what about $200,000? Olivia sighed in exasperation when she heard them lowering their price even more. Oh no, Tom, I heard before that rich people may look rich on the surface, but in reality, they owe the bank a lot. Do you think Ethan's broke? Did we waste our efforts by kidnapping his child? Olivia couldn't stand it anymore and suggested earnestly, why don't you raise the ransom a bit? If not, Ethan might think that you're mocking him. Tom stuck out 2 fingers. $2 million, then. Are we being too greedy? Olivia put a hand on her chest. Goodness, where did these bandits come from? More. $5 million. Don't be a coward, add another digit. $50 million. Oh, my mama. Tom couldn't even handle uttering such a huge number. $500 million. When Olivia spoke those words, Jerry staggered and fell onto the ground. Tom, how much is 500 million? Is it even more than the number of grass in the mountains combined? Miss, are you pulling our leg? Olivia was a little frustrated. Do you know how much they spent on the fireworks last night? Tom thought about it earnestly. Those were beautiful fireworks, and I looked at them for a long while. It's a pity that I couldn't bring them with me, or Mom and Grandma could have seen them as well. Jack once bought some sparklers for me for $5. So, the fireworks show probably cost a few $1,000s. You can add some more digits to that. Tens of millions. Tom fell next to Jerry, his mouth gaping. He couldn't close his mouth for a long time. Olivia could figure out their backgrounds after the exchange. It was obvious that the 2 bandits were ignorant and even a little innocent. I'm curious. How did the likes of you manage to get onto the ship? Tom hastily said, some time ago, Jack went ashore to buy supplies. He overheard that Miss Carlton was spending a lot of money to hold her son's first birthday celebration. So, we wanted to do something huge for once. They happened to be recruiting bodyguards for the cruise, so Jack applied. Olivia was surprised. Judging by how Brent worked, he wouldn't have hired some random person to be a bodyguard. She asked in shock, that's it? Tom was elated. Yeah, Jack said that he'd bring helpers, and he wanted meals instead of money. The boss, Mr. Gibson, agreed right away. We ate a lot of food in the kitchen, and it was delicious. I even took some food with me when I left. Olivia finally understood why the newbies managed to succeed. They were just lucky. Marcus Gibson probably didn't expect anyone to be this bold. How could someone cause problems on the cruise or kidnap Connor? Ethan and the rest probably never thought that the bodyguard position was by name only. So, this group easily achieved what they aimed for. It was quite a funny coincidence. So you're doing this for money. Where's the kid? My grandma is taking care of him. He drinks a lot, and he almost finished all the milk we milked from Buttercup, Jerry complained. While Olivia was questioning the 2, Jack had been standing at the side and staring silently at her. "Are you done with the questions?" Jack asked in a low voice. Olivia was about to say something when the man twirled the dagger in his hand. With a flash, the blade of the dagger was held against her neck. "Speak. Who exactly are you?" Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. Even though the two young lads were novices, this man wasn't. His eyes looked like those of a snake's as they peered through the mask, observing. The man was waiting for her to let down her guard before he struck. "If you dare hide anything again, I'll kill you right now." "No one will know if you die here," the man said coldly. He stood by the wooden window, his tall figure blocking the sunlight that spilled in from outside. His emotions were hidden under the mask, and only his tightly pursed lips were visible. The extreme murderous intent in his eyes sent chills down Olivia's spine. The words she said when she let down her guard probably roused suspicion. The two children weren't bad people. Since they were connected to Jack, she wanted to bet on the notion that Jack wasn't a bad person either. "I'm not lying. You can find photos I took with him on my phone." She took out her phone, which had lost all signal, and showed them the album she had always refused to touch. The album consisted of photos she secretly took of Ethan in the past. In the photos, he was either working, sleeping, or drinking coffee. There were also a few photos where he was sleeping, and she had taken a selfie with him with a funny face. All the photos proved one thing: she was messing around while he worked. The two shared a happy past. There was also a set of photos she had taken after she got pregnant. But Ethan had completely vanished by then. Only she remained in the photos with her huge belly and a faint smile on her lips. "There isn't a single lie in my story, but there is something I lied to you about. Even though I hate Ethan and Marina, their child is innocent. When I saw you guys taking the child away last night, I went after you without another thought." Taking a deep breath, Olivia said, "I don't want to harm the child, I want to save him. I never thought that I would faint from the lack of energy." Just as expected, her words won Jack's trust. He gave her a deep look before releasing her. "You're quite kind. I originally wanted to dump that kid in the ocean, but I gave up in the end. I couldn't harm an innocent child. Since your target is money instead of the kid, I think we can work together." Olivia stared at the man with a clear look in her eyes. "I hate Ethan, and I know him better than anyone else. I can help you get the money and retreat in one piece. In exchange, give me the child. I want to make sure that he's safe. Deal." At first, Olivia felt that Jack was too quick to agree. But when she opened the door to look for Connor, she was stunned by the view before her. The scenery was beautiful. She could see the azure sky, the pretty blue ocean, and the green mountains. They were on an island surrounded by the sea. It felt like they had been abandoned by the rest of the world. This was why he didn't have to threaten her at all. There wasn't any signal here, and no one would hear her even if she shouted. As long as they didn't have the intention to harm Connor, Olivia would never dream of risking anything. As soon as Olivia opened the wooden door, she saw Connor on the ground, trying to chase a kitten. The clothes on his back were covered in dirt, but he looked extra happy as he giggled. He kept mumbling the word kitty. "This kid doesn't behave like a rich baby at all. He's a good kid. I like him." While Jack was speaking, Olivia was already running toward Connor. Connor also stretched out his arms as he shouted happily, "Mama." Tom was confused. "Are you sure he's not your son?" Olivia said a little sadly, "He's just a baby. He'll call anyone his mommy." That may not be the case. Tom's mother was worried that he would get hungry, so she fed him some milk. He didn't even spare her a glance. Olivia remembered that the child had called her mama when they first met. She recalled that Connor was only born after her child died. Could it be that her child had reincarnated into Connor? Was that why they were extra close? Holding the child tighter, Olivia kissed him on the cheeks. "I'm so glad you're okay. Don't worry, miss. We didn't bully him. I wanted to save the cake I stole, so I didn't eat it, but I gave him a piece anyway." Olivia had gathered enough information on their living condition. The island didn't even have basic amenities. There were no wires, no internet, and no signals. They only had a solar panel they bought from the outside world, and electric lighting was rare at night. Fortunately, the island was rich in resources, and there was also a freshwater source. The few islanders' lives depended wholly on nature. They didn't even steal the jade pendant hanging on Connor's neck. In reality, these people were truly good-natured. While Olivia pondered, Connor's face suddenly turned red. Olivia had never taken care of a child before, so she asked worriedly, "What's the matter?" Connor seemed to be exerting his strength. In the next moment, Olivia felt warmth on her palm, and a nasty smell invaded her nostrils. Oof, the kid pooped. Tom pinched his nose, distorting his mask in the process. Martha Jenkins, Tom's mother, appeared. "Pass him to me, miss. I'll clean him up." Olivia subconsciously refused to give the child away. "I'll do it." Martha poured the boiled water into the basin. It was Olivia's first time cleaning up a child, so her movements were clumsy. Connor wasn't irritated, though. He sprawled on her legs and grinned happily. When Olivia was done, Martha took a piece of cloth cut from a shirt. She dried Connor, then placed a diaper under him. Martha was in her 50s, and her head was covered in silver hair. The skin on her fingers was rough. There was a gentle yet embarrassed smile on her wrinkled face as she said, "I hope you don't mind, miss. We don't have those things in the city, so we can only use a homemade diaper." Tom had already taken off his mask, revealing a handsome face underneath. He said earnestly, "Mom didn't want the baby's skin to get irritated, so she made the diaper from her thermal clothing. She only had one set, and it was her birthday gift from Jack too." Olivia looked at the diaper which had yellowed from the washing. She had a complicated feeling in her heart. Above is the entire content of episode 4. Thank you everyone for listening.